So the music's gone.
Okay.
And the text is gone. And we're going to beautify up the stream a little bit. No.
No.
There we go. There we go. What's up, guys? Nice. Welcome to Really. It's me and Blockhead. We're going to be doing the show today. You remember Blockhead?
No, I remember...
Blockhead is the villain from Gumby.
Okay, yeah, I thought that was... I was going to say no, but I remember the show Gumby.
Yeah, Blockhead. He was the villain from Gumby. And also...
Gumby is creepy when you think about it.
Why?
Have you seen the way the horse moves?
I mean, they're made out of, like... I don't know, Stretch Armstrong material, right? Was that like cornstarch, essentially?
Yeah, sure. But, like, the horse just... It looked like a horse made out of, like... ectoplasm or something, right? Like it was
like cornstarch.
It moved goopy.
I mean, that's the idea of the show.
And it was creepy.
You don't get the show. I mean, that's the whole idea.
I know. It was creepy.
That's the whole idea. A lot of children.
So I was right then.
A lot of children content's actually really creepy.
Yeah, like the sun and Teletubbies.
Yes, that was actually really ridiculous. So, it's May
8th. 7th.
It's not the 27th. My watch is definitely off. Today is May 9th. May the 9th be with you. I'm F. Dot. He's Krett, and we're still doing it. So let's give you a little bit of an update on the program itself. It's Monday, not Tuesday, and that, kind of sucks. Basically, pretty much what I predicted about Krett is that he would just get real busy. You have, like, a real job, don't you?
I mean... So I work on Paladins, and we patch very quickly.
Yeah.
I look at other games, and they patch, and I'm like, oh, that's a pretty good patch.
Mm-hmm.
We make that in about half a week.
Right, but yeah, I mean, so Paladins, it's in the closed beta, and I mean, Hi-Rez embraces this idea of just, like, it's beta, go nuts. And, like, I actually like that. I think that's a lot of fun. It allows a lot of different ideas to come to fruition, and a lot of ideas to get thrown out. It's kind of neat. But so because you're so freaking busy, Thursday or Tuesday, the day that we normally do this show, it just didn't work out last week, and then it's not going to work out this week or any other week ever. So.
Yeah, usually I have to stay pretty late on Tuesdays.
Word. So we're going to do it is Monday. I put most Mondays, anticipating there might be a day that you'll be like, look, I can't do it.
Yeah.
So most Mondays will be the
deal.
It's
almost today.
You really?
Yeah, I didn't play test today.
Oh, word. Well, I was casting until like 6:45 anyway.
Yeah, how was that?
Yeah. It was actually really fun. The games today were exciting. Randozzo's played against Envy and gave him a smackdown in game number 1,
yep.
and then Envy answered back, and then Tolly and I got to cast again.
I heard a little bit of that.
Yeah, did you like it?
I stopped listening because I had stuff to do.
What? Do you have a problem with monotone casters?
No, that's actually the style that I prefer.
But no, Tolly's been working out pretty well. I've really enjoyed it. The European games are actually dope. Torpedo and Paradigm wound up splitting. And, like, it has seemed to be the sort of motif. I don't know. The recent memory. A lot of the lower-end teams are finding wins against higher-end teams. And in such ways, not that the better teams or the higher-seeded teams are dropping the ball or screwing up. Everybody just looked up.
I stopped listening.
Thanks, dude.
What were you talking about?
I'm saying the bottom teams, the lower seeded teams in the SPL just have amplified their level of play.
Yeah, totally.
They just look better. I think if you looked at sort of beforehand, some of the bottom end teams just weren't good. And just so you know, I washed my hands as soon as I came in the door. But so,
you did.
But so some of the lower end teams in the past, speaking like season 1, season 2, right.
Except for that one game, they're just bad.
Right. There was a level of expert, or there was a level of ability, just higher from the other teams. And season 3, I think, is the first time that you can really look and say that the teams that are doing worse in the league, the bottom end teams, the quote unquote bad teams, aren't really in that spot anymore. Teams like Hunger for More, they've struggled at the beginning and they had to put all their pieces in the right part. But now they're successful. Now they're able to find some wins. And same too with Randozzo's. And I just think the level of talent across the board is a little bit more even than it used to be.
So partially I agree and partially I disagree, right? Like, To an extent, I think the level of talent across the entire board is higher than it used to be. And partially that's natural, right? Like,
yes.
As pro players continue to play a game, they get better and better and better and better until the game dies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's just sort of what happens. Like, in beta 3 years ago, we were all terrible. Everyone was just terrible, but we got better.
And you still are.
At Smite, I haven't played in months. But, on the other hand, I also think because of the nature of the roster lock rule that was used for this split,
where we lock rosters in the middle instead of at the beginning.
That's right. Roster changes were more frequent for teams all throughout the league as opposed to only teams on the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, every team went down. Because the thing is, inarguably, a roster lock will have a short-term negative effect on your team, unless you had someone who was really messing up and there's a clear upgrade. But most of the time, you make a roster change and there's going to be a dip.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen that
across the board.
Across the board. Almost every time, with very few exceptions. Subs, somehow, that's a little, boost for that one game. I don't know. I really have no idea why that's happening. But, so I think you have teams like Envy who, in a situation where they could not take players from other teams, they couldn't have taken Mask.
Okay.
They couldn't have,
Oh, in the hypothetical.
Right. And you don't see those sorts of roster swaps. I think you see those teams being more consistent. Now, maybe this system gives them an opportunity to have a stronger roster and a stronger position throughout the entire season as opposed to simply the split.
Well, I think it works better for the league in general because, like you said, I mean, sometimes we see the teams making roster swaps. The teams won't be successful right away because of synergy or this, that, or a third. But it allows teams to go ahead and experiment and give different things a shot. You're no longer sitting there just going, "What if Mask joined our team?" Well, we know exactly what happens if Mask joins Envy. Nothing. So he goes back to denial, right? That's a luxury, and I actually really I like that. I don't like musical chairs when it comes to rosters. I think that makes it look almost amateur, right? And the difference is, I mean, the problem is trades are exciting in sports because they're just that. They're trades, and they happen not infrequently, but there's always a push and pull. It's not just like, you suck, so I'm leaving. Yeah. And there's a little bit of structure to it. But that's all because of the ecosystem of traditional sports with contracts and teams and franchises, etc.
And right now, I think the system is fine, and part of it has to do with the fact that the ecosystem in Smite just isn't entirely there yet, right?
Exactly.
Like, you see the Mask, Skilladon, and Ionic musical chairs situation happening because none of those people were ever in a contract that had to be bought out and traded and stuff like that.
Right.
So there's no red tape, which, while usually a pain in the ass, is sort of important to make those trades a little bit more one way.
I mean, it's just not only just to ensure that it's the integrity of the league or the integrity of the trade, right? But just also it just feels a little bit more professional. Just there's something to do with just that air of professionalism. I mean, going and having to go through those steps and those red tape, like you said, it ensures that everything is all even and all equal. With that said, too much red tape can create an interesting scenario. And I'm going to jump into a topic without telling you beforehand, which is hilarious. Yesterday, we saw one of the largest rulings in League of Legends history. And it's not just specific to League of Legends. It's something that everybody has to really wake up to. Yeah. And we have sort of differing opinions on it, which is why I kind of bring it up. If you're not familiar, so basically LCS, budget, it's not a franchise system yet. They're in between or whatever. Right. But basically, people own teams just like they do everywhere else in esports. You can own a team, I can own a team, and then your LCS spot, it can be sold. Unlike in the SPL. You can just flat out sell your spot. If you have a team, let's call them, I don't know, Friendly, and somebody offers you $1 million,
I can just give it to you.
Or you can say no and get relegated out.
Yeah.
Either way. But the point remains that you can go ahead and you can sell your spot. So these teams are a commodity.
I see what you did.
They're an important commodity.
Yeah.
So what happened in the LCS was a number of rules were broken. And I don't think, for the purpose of this conversation, the rules are secondary in mind. basically what happened was teams did a lot of things that I deeply, like, I feel deeply about. Whether,
Sure.
Just mistreating players, not paying them their money, this, that, or third. Or allegations, I should say. Since some people on those teams have come and spoken out against the factuality of those statements.
Just to go through it, there were 3 teams where action was taken against them. You've got Team Impulse, and that was about the teams not paying their players on time. And League has this thing where you have to have a contract, and you have to pay all of your players a minimum amount.
Which is good. It's a nice step for esports to take. I don't like the idea big picture, but small picture right now.
It is good that players are making a minimum amount of money in a league that is successful, and it is good that contracts are not necessarily required. Like, that might be too much, but it is good that contracts are important because they're important.
Exactly. If the league becomes as big as the NFL, I'd like to see some changes. But right now, in the infancy of esports, I think that some of the steps that Ryan has taken is correct.
And so basically, this team, in the past, they had trouble with paying their players, and they'd had trouble with them not being under contract. League was like, "Hey, you got to do this." They did it when when the league officials went to them. So they're like, "Okay, we're not going to punish you. Just do it. Don't do it again."
Right.
And then they did it again. So they're like, "All right, you owners, indefinite ban, which means you can't come back until it's appealed, until someone says you can come back."
Right, and so it wasn't just them; it was also 2 other teams as well. Renegades being one of the bigger names involved there. Monte Cristo being a part of it. And here's the part that I don't necessarily jive with.
Yes, I think the Team Impulse part is sort of easier to agree with.
Yeah.
Now, you can say stuff sort of like the big business or, league having too much control over their league from a game and a...
Right.
That stuff gets a little bit weird, but Team Impulse's situation seems a little bit more cut and dry. Pay your players. Hey, they weren't. All right, you're in trouble. You did this before.
Exactly. And one of the issues is, as far as Riot is essentially judge, jury, and executioner, which Hi-Rez is in the same boat. We do the same thing. I like to think, I'm not directly involved with League Ops all the time, but I like to think that we do it a little bit more, like we handle issues like that. The few issues that we have had, they haven't been that high profile.
More on a player infraction level, which is in some ways more dramatic and in some ways much less dramatic.
It's more dramatic because it's an individual and one person, but it's less dramatic because there's not literally millions of dollars on the line. And that's where I bring my next point, which is why I sort of, despite the fact that I completely agree that these guys should be in trouble because they're being assholes to the players, and that's something near and dear to my heart, League is forcing these teams to sell their team by May 18th. That's 9 days away.
Well, it was 10 days because it was yesterday.
These are
at 2 a.m.
These are $1 million commodities. Now, we did see the NBA do something like this to Donald Sterling, and that's a different conversation because there were arbitrators and they made sure he got his right due, even though he's a racist piece of shit.
And because if we talk about NBA on the show, it's just him talking, and I don't know what to say.
Basically, in the NBA, there was a team owner that got caught on tape being very racist.
Okay, yeah.
And I actually, it's interesting because free speech, blah, blah, blah. That's not the type of league that the NBA wants to run. So they said, if you're going to be a racist piece of shit, you actually can't own a team. They forced him to sell. But what they did is they made sure there was an arbitrator so that he got a fair amount of money for his team. Racist or not, business is business, blah, 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 right? And however I feel morally about that guy, at the end of the day, everybody should be treated okay in a business situation. Riot's not doing that. There's no arbitrator. They're just saying, listen, you gotta sell in 10 days, and if you don't, we'll see what happens.
So let's go into the situation a little bit more in depth.
Sure.
I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of the rules, but I'm going to get into the nitty-gritty of the rules.
Typical Krett.
So Renegades, they've got a co-owner. You've got Monte Cristo and this other guy, Chris Badawi.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Badawi was last year banned for tampering, which is basically going to Team Liquid and be like, hey, jungler, join my team.
You mean fails?
Yeah. Play mid. And that's not okay, so Riot was like, all right, listen, 1 year, don't do it again. Now, Monte Cristo was still had him in the loop, and he was, in the league officials' opinion, enough of a part of Renegades to take action against them, along with these reports of not treating players properly, not paying them, etc.
I mean, basically, there was a boiler room deal where it was like, look, Monte Cristo and other guy, it's you and I owned a team, and then I fucked up, and they were like, F. You're gone for a year, peace out. And Krett was like, word, I'm the only owner. Psst, I'll still give you the money after you're done being banned. And I was like, word, I'm gonna get the money. And then somehow Riot found out.
Right, which I think that was maybe, at least from an official ruling standpoint, like, I think that is secondary, and then it comes back up when you go into what's actually going on here.
P.S. Monte Cristo, you have to sell the team, but you can still work for us.
Yes, part of his ban is he can't own a team, but he can still cast.
Because he's a valuable commodity.
He is.
And that's what, like...
That's a little weird. But I want to get to the third part before we get to the messy stuff. The third part is TDK, which is a challenger team. And throughout the course of the split, we saw members of TDK playing for Renegades doing very well, notably Ninja and Seraph, who got pulled up and traded out for the players that they replaced.
Right.
Now, it was a little weird, and it sort of looked like Renegades were just taking this challenger team and just taking whoever they wanted and pulling them out to the main team, which to an extent, like, yeah, players are going to accept that deal. And to another extent, it seemed a little strange. It seemed like the trades were not really trades, really balanced.
It was like a farm team, essentially.
And then, like, League looked into it, and they're like, oh, yeah, these two teams are way too related. This is not a business transaction.
It was basically, I mean, Cognitive and Cog Red didn't work like that, but it could have. Just the idea of, like, we have a team and then a lower-seeded sister team, and we're going to use this as a farm squad.
Right, and that is expressly disallowed.
Yes.
So they tried to be like, hey, that's not the case, but then it wasn't. So, like, I think that is also, you know, like, that's whatever, right? That's, like, seems like a clear breach of the rulings. But it really comes down to the stuff with Monte Cristo and Badawi that people are taking issue with.
Yes.
Because that's where it becomes a little bit more like, is this
okay?
Is this okay? And to other extent, is it retribution for Monte Cristo recently, basically going on strike and saying, "Hey, I'm not going to work events. They're not paying me enough."
Yeah. Background: Monte Cristo. He owns the team. He co-owns Renegades, and he's a caster, but sort of like unlike Hi-Rez. He's not Hi-Rez Adonis or Hi-Rez Hindu Man. He's what we do with Golden Boy, where Golden Boy comes out unaffiliated and he hosts our analyst
And
desk.
he also does work for OGN, who does the broadcasting of their international games for Korea.
Yeah. So he's involved deeply, but he's not directly employed by the company, which is probably an important thing to make note of. And because of that, he was like, look, I'm done casting for you guys. Counter-Strike pays me this much, and everybody gets paid this much. You guys are paying me this much, and it's just not enough. And, you know, sort of like League called his bluff and was like, word, we're not going to pay you. We're also going to take away your team, which is rough. And, like, that's not something you can ever prove. Yeah. And to be completely honest with you, working in the position that I work in Hi-Rez, being next to the league operations and seeing everything that goes down, it's probably not where that came from.
No, probably
It's probably extremely coincidental.
But you could totally look at it and be like, it's a power play. It's easy conspiracy.
Sure. And I'm less concerned with jet fuel and steel beams, and I'm more concerned with what actually went down with respects to Chris Badawi. Yeah. Like, the fact that he's not allowed to profit off of his team in the league that seems it seems like the arm of Riot is too big. And when it comes to mind, there was actually an ex-NFL player at Chris Warcraft, Chris Cluey. He was a kicker for the Vikings. He came out and he was like, look, I mean, everybody knows how I feel about the NFL and their league. It's not a good one. Their commissioner, Roger Goodell, makes a lot of problematic situations. Right. But the idea of a commissioner and a players' league is important for esports because Riot can basically, like I said, I don't believe that this was retribution for Monte Cristo saying what he said, but maybe it was. And the fact that you're taking money out of somebody's pocket, even though, like I said, Chris Badawi wasn't paying his players, allegedly. There's a lot of bullshit. Nobody knows what's true or not. Even if that's true, right, he should be punished, but to take away the profit that he's making from a team seems like that's almost overstepping the boundaries. Like, Zashu is banned from the SPL, but he's still allowed to stream and make YouTube content and make money related to the SPL. Right. If we said you're banned and you have to shut down your YouTube channel because you're an ass. Like, that's ridiculous.
Sure. Now, I think part of it is that they've just sort of said, like, we've had enough of this guy, right? He was, in their opinion, he was sort of infringing on a ban, which, like, is just sort of don't do that, right? Like, if you try to circumvent a ban and you're found out,
right,
you're going to get permaban. That's just sort of, like, the rule of the internet, right? From, like, every shitty forum mod on catforum.com to, like, or wait, no, there's a couponing forum? I don't know.
Super Clippers,
yeah, that's right. You know, like, don't circumvent bans, that's fairly standard, but the other thing is, and this is just sort of realism for me, is that, like, League can get more team owners, right? A lot of these organizations, Renegades specifically, did not exist before League of Legends.
Yeah, exactly.
They just, like, a dude had enough money to, like, have a house in California and be like, oh, yeah, you guys can live in the house and get paid this much.
Exactly, and what Merle says in chat is one of the bigger issues that I had, is the fact that Monte Cristo, the owner of this team, wasn't involved in any of the conversation, wasn't involved in any of the hearings, and was just like, yo, bang. Like, this is what it is. There's no discourse. There's no conversation. Right. Chachi was co-owner or a part of, you know, what Enemy's done, and Enemy was in the LCS. And, like,
you made that joke earlier.
I did. And, like, that conversation, like, that's what's troubling to me.
Yes.
I mean, I'm in a smaller esport where I'm closer to the players than other places. I'm friends with esports. I'm friends with professional gamers. I'm friends with these guys.
I lived with lasses.
I mean, you were a player, right? And, you know, some of my best friends are players. I obviously have issue. I obviously take issue to the highest regard with stuff like this. I mean, I was playing games with Drelo last night, right? Yeah. I'm playing games with Homofay last night. Like, these guys are my friends. If you don't pay my friends, I'm going to be mad.
Right.
But at the same time, that's what the conversation is this time.
So I think this goes in the same direction from two different sides. And part of this, over my lunch, I was checking Twitter. Ultra David, David Philip Graham, who is a lawyer that does some stuff in esports, retweeted a Yahoo Esports interview with this guy who is another esports lawyer, and his shtick is that he only works for players.
Okay.
And he was talking about this stuff. A lot of it is just contract law. Yeah. And, like, looking at a contract and being like, all right, $500 a month for 6 years with a non-compete clause, this will never hold up in court. Yeah. Like, and he's like, yeah, for free, I can get a player out of this contract. This, like, it's just, it's not real.
This is nonsense. Next.
Yeah, right? And, like, I think that's an important step because that helps players taking action when they are mistreated by an organization, so they can say, all right, I'm not being paid. My contract says I get paid if I do these things. I am doing these things. Now I have an avenue to take action. Right. It is also really handy that League of Legends has the option for players to go to the league officials and say, hey, I didn't get paid this minimum required amount, and I can prove that. So then the league officials can go to the teams and say, dude, what are you doing?
And I like that. I'm glad there's an avenue of communication.
But it shouldn't, first of all, I don't think it should have to go through the league officials.
Sure. It probably shouldn't have to go through the league officials. My problem is that it's just heavily weighted against an LCS owner. And, like, in this situation, it sounds like I'm being friends with big business and giving the finger to a bunch of players. But what about next time? When instead of it's not about, you know, paying players. Now it's about poaching players, which is, in my opinion, a weird rule anyway. What about another rule that you don't personally necessarily agree with? All right, if I poach a player, right? Basically, there are rules. There are rules in the LCS where you can't approach a player under contract to join your team later on. Right. What happens if what happens if some team owner poaches a player and then they're like, word, you tried to poach that player, they're not joining your team and you're screwed, you're fired, get rid of your LCS. Like, are you joking? That's a slippery slope that I just don't like. And I think there needs to be more checks and balances.
It's something that has happened in Smite on a fairly regular... this season, right? Like, Mask, Eonic, Skilladon hopped around repeatedly And that literally cannot happen if they were not approached while playing for another team. Now,
Exactly.
with that amount of hopping, it's pretty safe to assume they weren't under contract or they weren't under real contracts. But, like, that would be tampering by league's opinion. And their league is more mature than ours, so, like, that level of team hopping is something that I think they don't want to have happening, which is fine.
And I agree with that.
But, like, it's a weird rule, right? There's also a situation where ShadowQ was still on contract with Team Dignitas, so he couldn't play. But obviously, if he doesn't do any work towards lining up a new team, his career can stop being a career.
I mean, if you in esports, you're very much a shark. If you stop moving, you just sort of die. There really isn't any stopping, which is why I've encouraged Zashu to go ahead and like start a YouTube channel, and he's doing work. It's pretty dope. But my point is, I mean, less about the specificity of the anti-poaching rule and just more about the idea that, yes, in this situation, I am glad that there are heavy sanctions coming down on individuals that don't pay their players and their employees, especially in a situation where the average age of the employee is very young, the average experience. But when it's a different rule, I just don't like the door that this has opened. Because sure, this is a bad spot, and we don't think you belong in the ecosystem of our game. Fine, that's all well and good. But like I said, what happens when it's something less egregious? Sure. And Riot's just like, you know what? I don't like the cut of your jib. Let me find an excuse. According to Rule 17.9-80, you can't wear red on Thursdays. I caught you last week. Sell your team in 7 days or you're smoked. Like, obviously that's an exaggeration, but, I mean, this is why America exists, because that shit sucked for, like, on a governmental scale. And when you're running a league, there needs to be some sort of checks and balances, and like I quoted Chris Cluey, whether it's a players union or some sort of just a single commissioner that gets checked by a governing board of people, arbitrators are constantly involved. I mean, there was a cheating scandal in the NFL last year, and it went to the Supreme Court. Like, I don't like that the U.S. gets involved with that stuff, but the idea of an outside person influencing and having a conversation, mediating what goes on in the league, I think that's important. So maybe it's just the ecosystem of esports in general, but I think the future of esports is healthier with a governing body, either on the player side, otherwise, or everything in between. There needs to be somebody unaffiliated with the game and league in order to make it work.
And I think what happened yesterday is good, because I think it's going to move us in that direction. Lawyers realizing that, hey, this is a place where I can make money and have a business, which is great, because then people know about them and people use lawyers, and players will actually go into depth with their contracts and not sign on to a team for $200 a month and then qualify into a league and find out that they're now under a new sponsor because the team could just sell and they didn't have any part in it.
Right.
That was a really specific example.
But I mean, that's sort of the life of a player, right?
It sort of is, and part of it is this, like, esports has been around for a long time. It hasn't been popular for a long time, but, all right, esports has been around for like 20 years, right? Yeah. And it hasn't been big until very recently.
Yep.
And it's still a handshake business.
Very much so, but expand. What do you mean by that?
It's a handshake business where people will be like, hey, if you do this for me, I will give you this. There is no contract. There is no proof. There's nothing legally binding. It just sort of happens. And that is important to be part of the culture of, you know, respect and the court of public opinion and people doing what they say for smaller organizations. Because if you're a team in, I don't know, like, if you run a Clash Royale team, right? Like, how much money do you have to write contracts and pay your players? Maybe you're trying to get off the ground.
Sure.
So that's important to be like, yeah, we'll do this. You know, it's fine. But eventually, if you've got, you know, a big COD team that's winning, or a Smite team that's coming in top 3 or top 5, or has been in season after season of SPL, you need to have real contracts. And there needs to be a lawyer for the players that goes through them and says, this is shit, this is shit, this is shit, this is shit.
Protection for the players. Yeah, yeah.
Protection for the players, protection for the team, I think is a good step forward, and I think the Players Union is the next step.
Right.
And that's something that hasn't even begun to form.
I mean, that speaks to the infrastructure of the not league, but the world of esports, right? It speaks to the infrastructure. I see people talking about Snoopy. Snoopy previously, is it Snoopy? I've only seen it in text, to be completely honest with you. But anyway, a former league pro, he's now stepped up and he's created sort of a house where he consults with players. House is the wrong term, but an existence where he will consult with players and sort of help them through contracts. Where honestly, Brandon was doing that for a couple of SPL pros. We're like, hey man, is team A, B, C, D, E doing anything shady? And he'd be like, yeah, this contract sucks. I'm not a lawyer, and I can tell this contract sucks. Yeah. And it actually got fixed. And like I said, I mean, Brandon was never a pro player. He didn't have any law background, but his ability to look at the contract and say it was trash and get that changed.
Honestly, just your parents.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, they signed a lease.
so to have an ex-pro do that's a nice step in the right direction for esports infrastructure.
Yeah.
It starts at, I think it starts at the players, because I'm very close to players and I like protecting the players. But I think the next step after players, I mean, or even at the same time, take 2 steps forward, is protecting the organizations. Because frankly, I mean, esports is still the Wild West. It's a little bit more civilized, right? But it's still the Wild West. And if you're in the LCS, like I said, there's a little bit more rules. I'm not investing in a league team anymore. Not like, just because I'm afraid. If I'm a bazillionaire and I'm starting an esports brand, which a lot of these bazillionaires are looking at.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, 2 weeks ago, last month, we had Shaquille O'Neal and Alex Rodriguez endorse Energy, right? And then Rick Fox famously started Echo Fox.
Yeah.
You know, Rick Fox of NBA fame, not only he's an analyst now, but he was a former player and champion, right? So we're seeing all these bazillionaires enter the world of esports, and it's discouraging. Like I said, this is a situation where, yeah, I want to give the finger to those guys that aren't paying their players. But what happens when they just don't like my shoes? What happens when, you know, I poach a player? What happens when I, you know, accidentally... Favorite example, there's an NBA team where they let the superstars rest at the end of the season, and everybody gets mad. LCS could just say, listen, you sat Faker. All the people tuned in for Faker. They didn't get to see Faker.
Yeah. You
got to sell your team. There's no rule saying that they won't. So if I'm a bazillionaire, if I'm a professional, if I'm looking to get into the esports world, that scares me. And honestly, I'm staying away from League of Legends. I'm moving into games like Counter-Strike. I'm moving into games like maybe even Hearthstone, right? Like, shouts to the SPL. Come to the SPL. But like, I'm looking elsewhere than League, because that's a scary proposition. And if you're a fan of esports in general, you have to be aware of what's going on in the front runner. The LCS very much that front runner at the moment. And what's scary for the LCS is scary for esports as a whole.
Yeah. And so I think part of it is this unique thing with the LCS where it's huge, but it's not established in that sort of way. And that's something that, you know, we'll have to see if Riot does solve. If they do end up having this, you know, an advisory board and a commissioner and all that, and it becomes a little bit more on the level.
Right.
And maybe they just won't, right? But on the other hand, I personally, having come from the player standpoint,
right,
I do think it is better than just having a Wild West situation like Counter-Strike, where, there's just nothing. Like, people just do whatever the fuck they want.
I mean, coming from the other side as well, I begrudgingly agree with you.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, I'm super conscious of the other side as far as, like, ownership is concerned. Yeah. I consider David Fry a friend. I consider Chachi and Clerky and Frank a friend. And
right.
Frank has moved into another project.
Well,
and
the other part of it with League is that, and Chachi has been mentioning this in chat, but just to address it with our voices. Mm-hmm. There's a lot more overhead to a League team than there's other teams, because you have to own a house and it has to be near LA. Which, first of all, you have to own a house near LA, right? Not only that, but you need sponsorship, and you need merchandise because that's where you make your money.
Yeah, that's the case anywhere, and even in the SPL, like I think there should.
And so looking at a team like Renegades, where you go to the website, you go to their sponsors page, no sponsors. Where the fuck did they get the money? Right?
Sure.
So I don't know the answer to that. I don't think it's Monte Cristo. If he's, maybe it's just.
And that doesn't have to. And like I don't really. Unless you're funding your esports team with the freaking slave trade in blood diamonds, I don't care where you're.
No, it's not that. It's the thing is that esports needs to have more ways for teams that aren't Fnatic to become profitable.
I see what you're saying, and that I think is again from a bigger picture than smaller picture. I absolutely love what Major League Soccer has done. MLS has a very interesting approach, and they're not the only league that has franchises. Where the NBA, they're all franchises. What happens is you can own a team, but it's all a part of one league, right? It's branched off of that. What the MLS has, they have a franchise system where you own a team, but it's sort of like opening a Subway.
Yeah.
Like it's your store, but at the end of the day, it's Subway's store. You can own a team. You can open a team in MLS, and then what happens is there is this one center unit in between MLS and the teams, and this center unit is basically communism. Basically, a portion of the profits that go to all the MLS teams get funneled into this center circle, and it's just distributed amongst everybody with respects to like marketing and stuff. Sure, thank you. I knew your college degree would come in handy for something.
Yeah, dude.
But so the idea is that the profits are distributed amongst each other. So you don't have a situation where in baseball there's no salary cap and things get a little bit more. The Yankees just bought championships for 20 years. Shouts to New York, right? And then broke teams just weren't able to do much. Now you've got a situation. MLS 10 years ago was in the same situation that esports is in now, where they've got a cool game, they've got a group of hardcore fans that love their sport, and their task was to take their game and bring it to the next level, make more people interested in it. And the way they did that was distributing the wealth amongst other teams, specifically with respects to marketing. There's a specific marketing fund that the MLS shares with all their teams. And then if you go ahead and you look towards what the LCS does, etc., that's probably, not even just the LCS, esports in general, that's probably not too bad of an approach.
Part of it is also... And one of the big advantages of video games and esports is that there's a game attached that people play.
Right.
So shout outs to Hi-Rez team chests. Right?
That's exactly what I'm talking
That
about.
directly benefits and advertises and is advertised by teams.
Yep.
Is, I think, a big avenue. We've seen it in Counter-Strike with stickers. You've seen in Dota with, I think they're like flags or stuff where you can like
funny hats.
I don't fucking know, hats.
Funny hats.
Whatever. I don't know if League really does anything except for their championship teams, but that's a big move. And
that's
there are teams that made a lot of money off of chests, which is great.
Right.
Now, it's just important that that money isn't pocketed, and it is going to the players.
Right, well. So like checks and balances need to exist, and that sort of thing has to sort of happen. But just the movement, like, and it's step by step, right? And like you said, I just like the fact that that's already in games, and that's something that's exciting, and the fact that it's distributed. I mean, a team like Homegrown, Paradigm, Eager. Do we have another Homegrown team? COG. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Paradigm, Eager, and COG are able to exist. I mean, partly because Hi-Rez pays for a lot.
Yeah.
Travel, room and board when it comes to land, Hi-Rez pays for, which is not the norm. That's kind of weird. Everyone else is. That's what your organization is for. Yeah. To buy you plane tickets to go to Zen and doing stuff.
Console, I think for the most part, I don't know about events at Hi-Rez Studios, but like UMG, not paid for. That's just sort of how console works. That's how console.
That's how esports works.
Yeah.
Forget console. That's how esports works. Whatever you're playing, it's Hi-Rez is rare and that's a separate conversation. But when it comes down to it, organizations like those three, even without the fact that Hi-Rez pays for stuff, there is still some sort of overhead. Whether it's just the $20 that it takes to keep a website on board, or the $200 it takes to print out some jerseys that look nice and slap your sponsorship sticker on it, or when your player's computer crashes and you got to go fix that stuff, right? There is overhead to running a team, and Hi-Rez and other games have been able to pay it back by way of, like you said, either team chests or team stickers or whatnot. That circles back and goes to the team, and that's very important for the ecosystem of esports in general.
What's really cool for Smite is that these teams have a lot less overhead, so they can do more. And frankly, if a Smite organization isn't doing their part,
right,
it's just pure shame, right? Because it's like, look, bro, it's not that hard. You don't have to pay for their room and board when they fly to events.
You buy them T-shirts and you tell Razor to deliver the keyboard. Like, that's what you do, And I'm being extremely. I'm minimizing.
Oversimplifying.
Yeah, I'm minimizing everything. I can feel Chachi ready to throw his computer out the window. But my point is, as far as like monetarily, it's not a lot, and like, is that a sustainable situation is a different conversation for a different day. But I'm focusing more on the team chest and that stuff that comes back. That's a good first move, right? That's a way to support the teams inside and create a system where, in a game like Smite that isn't number one, well, now if I'm a bigger team, now if I'm Fnatic, I'm kind of interested in sticking around. Now I can make a couple of bucks off of this chest or whatnot. So, I mean, that's a situation where like it's enticing for people to get involved. So that's a nice step. And then, like I said, I mean, just furthering the infrastructure of esports. All right, now we have a situation like the MLS where we're able to share some of the money and give back to the teams, and they can put that in either bettering their players, raising the player's salary, or just taking vacations for themselves. But either way, the money is going back to the individual teams, and that's a big part of it. Now the next step is making sure that like all the rules are followed, and everybody's treated correctly.
And part of it is also establishing more rules and making sure that like, there's a clear contract and stuff like that. And
coming back to where we started the conversation with League, I'm not ready to say that it should be up to the game maker.
Sure.
Maybe there should be an outside, nothing like this exists for sports, but sports are a very different world in that nobody owns baseball. Nobody owns basketball.
I mean, part of it is, the thing is, you're basically talking about an outside organization that runs the league and does the things
like the UN, or well, honestly,
like UMG and MLG.
Sure, I'm thinking bigger. I think it's totally fine that that the game studios run their own league. In fact, I kind of like that. I don't have a problem with that because there's a lot of conversation. I mean, even in Hi-Rez, just esports being separated from like the development side of things. Esports has no control over patch cycle. So a lot of what people were talking about the recent patching and the timing of it, like, oh, well, the game exists and esports is a small percentage compared to the large percentage. Like, the game will continue to change. The game will get better. It's an improvement. And the gods got to come out. The game has to change. And that's separated.
Sure, that's something that we see a lot with Paladins, too. We've got our qualifier tournaments going on. We're making... and changes week by week.
Paladins is in beta, so I put a big asterisk on that.
Yeah, sure.
But when it comes to Smite, I mean, like it's a different conversation. Maybe the conversation should be closer, but it's close as is, and certain things can't be avoided. And there's an understanding from esports to development, but that conversation is close and it's inclusive. If you separate to completely separate league and completely separate developer, I don't necessarily hate that, but I think it's unrequired. I basically don't have an issue with the developer running their own league. I think that outside there should be an overarching sort of like a UN that just like if you're going to be involved in esports and you're going to be taken seriously, right? If you want to be considered one of the big five, right? It's Counter-Strike, it's League, it's Dota, it's Smite, it's Rocket League, right? These are the rules that you must follow, and you will be given the good housekeeping blue star of approval or whatnot.
So basically a better business bureau. A better esports bureau.
Yes, but not shitty like the BBB.
Yeah. My question is just, how does that happen?
I mean, ask FIFA. But first, give them tons of money, and then they'll answer whatever you want. But realistically, I mean, that opens up a whole separate can of worms. But I'm ready for that can of worms to be opened. If there's situations where it's like bribery, I want to be in that position where we can have bribery scandals because people are trying to appease the rules. Because right now there aren't any rules to appease, and you can League has sanctions, and we started this conversation with how far that can reach and how scary that is. But if you own a Smash Brothers player. team. I don't want to say you don't own players, but like
sponsor.
Yeah, like if you sponsor any game, I don't know, if you sponsor a Clash Royale team or player, I mean, you could do whatever the hell you want. You could just not pay them, and then what do? Write about it on LiveJournal, and then the lawyer says nothing was in stone. You're that dumb, right? There's nothing stopping that. Yeah. Unscrupulous people will be attracted as it gets larger and larger. Luckily, so far, all of the recent big money investors, for the most part, have been A-plus people. We have seen some scandals, specifically on the league side of things, overseas even more so. But people like Rick Fox and Shaq, they have a lot to rest their... Shaq doesn't want to be involved in a scandal where he doesn't pay his players. Yeah. Like, Rick Fox is on NBA TV. He doesn't want to get in hot water for not paying some 16-year-old. So
17. The minimum age in the league is 17.
So that has some sort of, like, de facto checks and balances. But what happens when just, like, oil billionaire number 17 switches his interests from Eve to Smite, and he opens up a team, and he's just like, nah, I'm not going to pay you for this split, right? Like, honestly, knowing the way Hi-Rez works, we would just, like, body him out. Yeah. But, like, that's also scary.
And it also shouldn't be the answer, right?
Exactly.
Players should be able to take legal action, go through the right course, and that's not there. Mm-hmm. And on the other hand, like, if that system fails, there should also be some sort of minimum requirement established by the people who run the league. Exactly. Which, in our case, in League's case, happened to be the game developer. Mm-hmm. Which, while a little weird... Like, you just sort of can't argue that it is good that League has a minimum amount that each pro player must be paid for playing during a split.
Exactly.
It's just like, it's like a minimum wage law. It's a good thing to exist.
Yeah, sure. And you know, those are the right steps. But I think the next step is really to make that overarching community. Like I said,
I think it needs to start with the players union.
Yeah,
well, I think it needs to start with lawyers and then a players.
Well, the players' union would demand the existence of this group of moderators, this group of arbitrators, because you know, if I'm a player involved in a league and some of these rules just don't make any sense, like, all right, let's say League makes a rule, let's say SPL makes a rule, let's say HOTS makes a rule. Each team must feature a woman.
Yeah, they could do that.
Right now.
In fact, there was this, I think it was GSL, it was some sort
Hearthstone.
of...
Yep, Garena. You're talking about Garena.
Yeah, it was Garena, who said, alright, women have their own league, and League of Legends was like, no, they don't. And it sucks that League had to do that, because they shouldn't be the ones doing that. Right. It should be the players who can just be like, no, just shut up.
Yeah, exactly, and you know, let's say that rule goes forward, the players union can say no, and then League can say yes, and then you're just at a deadlock and the players don't play, and like, okay, fine, right? Yeah. And that creates a situation where now you're taking all of the power from the league, and you're giving all of the power to the players, which is
not good.
Also a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Like, and you know, I'm obviously in between. I have many friends that are pro gamers, and I work for a developer
I've
that
even dabbled in being a pro gamer myself.
Yeah. And so
dabbled.
All right, I'll give that to you. And so like the idea, and so like, I love my player friends, but they have a specific mindset and a specific outlook, and that can be tainted, just like the other side can be tainted. There needs to be someone in between. No one on either side of this conversation, because they all have their own vested interests. If I'm in the players union, I'm like, look, we all want Lambos. I'm not showing up until I get a Diablo in my driveway.
I do want a Lambo.
Right? If there's not a Diablo in my driveway, you got no LCS, right? And League is just like, well, the players' union sucks. You're not allowed to be in our league if you're in a players' union. See you later. The overall quality of the league goes down. Snowball, 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 snowball. My point is
terrible.
Yeah, my point is, and sure, that sounds ridiculous. Everybody wants a Lambo, but what happens when it's just, all right, we want to raise the minimum wage. We want to raise what people are allowed to pay us. Now you're dabbling in are they worth it? There's a bigger conversation there. Somebody needs to exist between the players and the league. And I don't necessarily think that an outsider needs to run the league. Like I said, I think the developer has a unique outlook and can run a league very well as long as they employ the right people.
And the relationship that the esports have with the developer and the developer have is incredibly valuable. Because then the developer makes a change, and you talk to the people who work at the same company and say, hey, we're doing this.
Yeah. Hey, listen, we're thinking of changing Conquest to make it so that gold spooling is 10 gold per second, and we're going to add a Siege Giant. And then they just go, hey, Esports Bros, how you feel about that? And we're like, go home! Right? Like, that's not how that works. You need to have that conversation, so I like that. But very important. And like I said, I mean, all right. There's an esports organization. And because of the way esports works, right, you're going to have the esports organization employs all of the games that will be marketed from this organization. And those games are considered the genre, just to lessen the watering down of esports. You don't have 17 MOBAs and 30 shooters. We are now following Smite as our, we're following League of Legends as our MOBA. We're following Counter-Strike as our shooter. We're following Rocket League as our whatever the fuck it is, and we're following Smite as our action game. And these are the 4 or 5 or 6. So these are the genres that we're supporting. This is what we're doing. And other games can sort of, and this just creates like it's easier to look at, right? All of these rules are now under one umbrella. So if you're going to be mistreated in Counter-Strike, you're going to be mistreated in LCS. Opposite way. Ensure that you're treated well, etc. None of these people that are on this, that are a part of this separate unit, are affiliated with developers, or more importantly, the leagues. None of them are affiliated with the players, so you have an outside perspective. Nobody is sitting there going, you know, I like League better than Dota, so I want this to happen for League and not Dota, right? It's just brought to you by like popularity's sake and this, that, or third. Now you have a situation where the players union says, we're not playing unless we get Lambos. And the LCS goes, well, we're not, maximum salary is $7 a month, right? Both of you guys are fucking assholes. You can't be in our you can't be in our esports council anymore. We're picking up Dota, right? Like that's an interesting checks and balances system, and it's a long way from now. And FIFA has their own problems, but I would much rather have the problems that FIFA have than have. There wasn't a phone call. It was just like, yo, Krett, I heard you're an anime weeb. We can't do the show anymore. Peace. Oh, you have something to say about it? Don't. Interesting approach, and it's scary to me that right now there's not a conversation with the league teams where it's just like, bro,
what's happening.
You got to sell your team. Like Merle said, Monte Cristo tweeted out that he wasn't involved in the conversation. There wasn't there wasn't arbitration. There wasn't a hearing. There wasn't a phone call. It was just like, yo, Krett, I heard you're an anime weeb. We can't do the show anymore. Peace. Oh, you have something to say about it? Don't care. Blah, blah, blah. Like, no, man.
Man, so over a year ago, not last October, but the one before, we were in the office. Mm-hmm. We were doing relegations. Oh, and that was when the 5 Angry Men scandal happened.
Oh.
And we were sitting with the production boys. Kevin was there.
Pecky's was there.
Bart's desk is on the end, and he's just sitting there. He's like, "You heard about this? I need to talk to Cloud." And he messages Cloud on Skype, and like that was how the arbitration for that happened. Mm-hmm. In part, of course. Then it like went to meetings and stuff.
But at least there was a.
But he talked to Cloud.
And that's part of why I mean, go Smite. That's why I like Smite. That's why I like Hi-Rez, because the culture. I mean, head of League Ops is APC. He's an ex-Pro Tribes player, right? Bart built this stuff up from the bottom up. Everybody has been a part of the esports scene. So like, the conversation was never ban the game and ban him. He's screwed. The conversation was always like, is this really what happened? I want to know the full situation. Yeah. I would hate to screw a player over. Let's ask Cloud. Yeah. And that being the instinct of the league is a good look. And of course, like, I think Hi-Rez is the shit and does most of the things right. Of course I do, right? That's my home team. But even with that, I don't distrust. I trust Hi-Rez to make all the right choices. But do I trust every league to make all the right choices? Totally. And that's really what scares me. And like, I would have no problem, having the SPL as a part of a bigger body of bigger organization just because of that. I trust my team and myself. I think APC, Dan, and Cooper make a fantastic team. They are well balanced. They are well organized. And when it comes down to a competitive ruling,
and
they're going to sit there for a
while.
while.
Bribe 2 of them.
That's true. and like it just goes. They're like, players don't get banned competitively willy-nilly.
In fact,
there's like
players don't get banned competitively from an esports side.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, I think it's only the 5-on-your-men situation. Every other esports ban has been primarily it has been through the normal support system.
Right. It's been through the normal support system, but the ban competitively is different. Like, you can go, when you're banned in game, you can open up a new account.
Yeah.
The TOS, we don't allow you to play in the league. That's the esports side of thing. And so, like, with respects to that, there's a lot of conversation, and, like, I trust those guys. They know what they're doing, and, you know, it totally sucks when your star solo laner gets banned out, and luckily Axios doesn't suck. But, like, there was a lot of conversation. It wasn't just like, well, he's banned from the game, he's banned from esports. It was like, all right, let's look at the situation, let's talk, blah, blah, blah. And like, I trust my team. I don't trust everybody else's team. And even with the fact that I trust my team, I would feel comfortable with players being looked after a little bit more. I mean, especially in Smite, where there is not the infrastructure that the LCS has, right? Like, there are, you know, nobody's getting mistreated, mainly because the league looks out for our players. But, like, having that luxury is a nice thing.
I mean, it's tough, right? Because the league doesn't... Riot's system is too far in one direction, right?
Yes.
Like, it's essentially tyranny.
It's tyranny.
They own everything, and you do what they say. And tyranny, when it's a benevolent tyranny, is the best system of government.
Yup.
Because everything gets done.
But benevolent tyranny is
very
always
rare.
temporary.
Yes.
Also, shouts to the girl Tyranny I met in high school. She's very cool and shares the last name of Shadow Nightmare. Keep going. And if that's your cousin, Shadow, hook it up.
So, no, he's not from Kentucky.
He's from the UK.
Anyway. Oh, true. Yeah. Yep. My family's Irish.
Sweet. What were you saying?
Anyway, so, you know, Lee has this tyranny, which is too much. Honestly, I'd like to see more from Smite.
Right.
And it's not the end, right? Like, you have to evaluate it in the context of what it is.
Okay.
A system that is authoritative the way League of Legends governing board is, dictatorship, sure, in my opinion, is not the ideal. Actually, well, in pretty much everyone's opinion, it's not the ideal. Probably in theirs too. It's not the ideal. But what it is you've got the reality of the situation where in most esports, on varying levels, there is a amount of under-regulation.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And then you've got the ideal that has this perfect amount of regulation that we'll probably never get to.
There's never... Yeah. That doesn't...
But I think there's this authoritative system that League has put in place that is a means to get closer to the ideal.
I would much rather have too many rules than Wild West.
Yes.
I don't want players to get paid and stuff.
To an extent, I want to see Smite do a little bit more in that direction because of my personal experiences as a player.
Sure.
But I think Smite, for the most part, does okay.
Right.
And they do everything they can with the rules that they have.
Sure.
Which is great. There just isn't, partially because of the economy that League has, there isn't this situation of buying into SPL slots and that amount of money and the amount of regulation that can come with something that is as valuable as an LCS spot. Right? If an LCS spot, as Chachi has said, is going for $1.2 million, League can say, look, we have this imaginary thing that is worth a lot of money.
I mean, David...
And it comes with these regulations.
I mean, David from Coast has just, like, played house hunters with League teams.
Yeah.
Homie just... David Blaine? I met him at launch, I forgot. It's not David Spade and it's not David Blaine. But David from Coast, he's, like, just endorsed a bunch of League teams, made them big, and then sold them off, and, like, sweet deal. Is that a bad practice? Not necessarily. Yeah. Is that something you want for the health of your overall league? Probably not. It's not an unscrupulous practice. I have no problem with it. I don't think he's a bad guy for doing it. In fact, I think he's a genius, and I want the startup capital to do the same. Sure. But for the long-term health of the league, probably not ideal. Mm-hmm. You know, probably not the best way to go.
So I want to address a question I saw in chat, which was... Can you scroll up a little bit so I can see the exact wording?
Was it Thoughts on Panda Cat?
No, it was not Thoughts on Panda Cat. I don't know what the meme is from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there we go. So putting the whole ban aside, what do you think of the issue the sell-by-date Riot have made? Now, I think this is a situation where we're going to disagree.
That's my biggest issue with the whole situation.
And that's something that I'm actually okay with. Now, one of the things going to the spring split of LCS is that teams were going in with not that much prep time, and I think that is where this sell-by date is coming from. I think it is a means to protect the players, and because I primarily care about the players, I'm all for it.
Sure.
You, on the other hand, I assume you're just sort of like, yeah, it's not enough time.
Yeah, I mean, it's not enough time, sure. It also just creates a situation where, like, I've experienced this not with league teams, not with a sports team or an esports team. God forbid I say sports. Shouts to Darren Ravel. He got the sports nerds on him today. But I've been in the situation where you have a product and you're forced to sell it, and everybody knows. So if this price tag says $70 on it, or this price tag says, $1,000, right? On my product, I have this phone and I have to sell it. This phone is worth $1,000, but I have to sell it by tomorrow, otherwise I go to jail.
Right?
I'm
offering $300.
Right? And that's bullshit. That's just not okay.
Yeah.
Because now you're dipping into the pockets. And like I said, the NBA did for Donald Sterling, a deplorable human being, where, to be completely honest with you, he was just a super old man, and I think sometimes you live past your time. Bill Burr is a big part of this, where, like, it was okay to be racist back in the day, and now it's just not, And like, he's a deplorable human being, but, like, you can't deny punishing somebody in the league is one thing.
Yeah.
You've broken our rules in the league. Paying players is egregious, but like I said, let's bring it down a notch and let's talk about an anti-poaching rule. Okay? Krett's team, you poached a player you weren't supposed to.
I stole MLC stealth.
Now you have to sell. Now you have to sell the team. It's valued at $1 million. I'm going to offer you $500,000. Screw you. You're going to lose a bunch of money. Oh, freaking well. That's not fair to the amount of work that you've done to get your team valued at $1 million. Regardless if you're a bad dude or not, you deserve that work to be recognized, and monetarily is a different conversation. Morals and money usually don't intersect, for better or for worse. And this is one of those situations where, like, yes, with regards to the players, screw you, I don't want you to be able to afford a happy meal. But what happens when it's something a little bit less intricate, or a little bit, more intricate, and it's not so cut and dry? That situation needs to be moderated.
Yeah.
Sell-by date, you know what? Fine, but there better be a lawyer saying this is the evaluation of the team. You have to offer this minimum. You have to do this. Now, the players involved, do the players keep their spot, this, that, or a third? That's a different conversation,
sure.
And that's the league rule. But to set a sell-by date and not ensure that the person selling the team gets their due is overstepping what I feel a league should be able to do. A league should be able to suspend a player, suspend a player and fine them, go ahead. You can't take away their salary. You can fine them equivalent to their salary if what they did was that egregious, but you can't demand that their team doesn't pay them. You can't demand that their team leaves them at home.
Well, you can ban them.
Sure.
You can demand that the team leaves them at home.
Yeah. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. But you see what I'm saying? Like, there is a. It seems very shady to me that a league, any league, not LCS, any league can take money out of somebody's pocket, regardless if they're a scumbag or not. Especially since, in this case with league, there's no proof. There's a lot of people speaking in the other direction, specifically with Renegades. But, like, there wasn't a meeting, there was an arbitration, and, like, forget everything that we just said, it's not proven set in stone.
Yeah.
If you have it on tape, like, hey, we're going to cheat. Yes, we will cheat. Excellent. See you later, cheater. High five, cheater. Let's go cheating. Then, yeah, you know what? Fine, screw them.
Yep.
But it's not that black and white.
That's when your team gets banned for a year.
Sure, but it's not that black and white. And, like, the fact that you're going to force somebody to sell and lose tons of money, because there's no way that these sales make the amount of money they're supposed to.
Yeah.
It's just, like you said, it's $1,000. I got to sell it by tomorrow. Dude, I'll give you $300, because if you don't think you're screwed.
See, it's this really weird problem, though, because, first of all, it comes from the thing where nobody wants to do these bans, right? Like, they're just generally not healthy and generally not good.
Mm-hmm.
And going to Smite, like, 5 Angry Men.
Sure.
Right? Like, this team qualified into into this tournament, into
Right.
the playoffs. I think
Yeah.
it was playoffs for Worlds, right?
Players,
like
yes.
they had a potential slot at Worlds off of this event,
Okay.
and because of the actions of Cloud, they were found to have colluded,
And other people, sure.
and other people. They were found to have colluded, and they lost that chance,
Shouts to my man Dre, though.
which really sucks.
But oh well.
But oh well, and dude, there are game logs.
Yeah, no, I mean that's it's just proven, right?
Yeah.
You know, and that sucks. And you know, I'm not against sanctions being
Or like
taken.
another example is actually fairly recent. Like there are logs in the game of him saying things that his SPL contract says he can't say.
Yeah, conduct unbecoming of the league, yeah.
So it's like it sucks, but like
Yeah, dude, you can't call people the F word. You called people the F word.
Yeah.
See it like and you know that is there are rules stated and the ramifications are stated as well, and that's a big part of what the SPL does is that we want a situation where I can copy and paste.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, oh well, I don't know, maybe we should have a conversation. Rule section, send it to you.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? Like you just
So
you
it
broke
comes to a
that rule.
situation where in a perfect world,
Mm-hmm.
developers wouldn't have control over the league because it's hard to be objective about things like that.
Right.
But that world is far off.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
baseball has been around for a very long time.
I mean, yeah.
Smite's been around for 4 years, right? Like
yeah, pretty much.
League of Legends has been around for I think it's 7 or 8 now.
Yeah, 7 or 8.
And like, what's gonna happen when League of Legends 2 comes around? What if people stop playing? What happens to that? So that whole system to have someone run a league that is not the game developers
right.
doesn't exist.
I mean, he is like you see that with
Not real.
You see that with Counter Strike, right? Like ESL runs a league. Freaking Turner's gonna run a league.
Right, but Valve
runs
runs the
a league.
majors. I think.
Not all the time. I mean, you see the ESL majors happen, right? And then, like I said, Turner, and like, sure, the majors happen right now, but all these leagues, I mean, it's basically the Wild West trying to see who gets the best league.
Yeah.
I mean, it happened in the early 50s and 60s with football. It happened earlier than that with baseball. You had the NBA and the ABA competing for players, and then the NBA and the NFL obviously won. Fun fact, Donald Trump endorsed the other football league. Where the fuck did that go?
I thought he always wins.
The NFL exists and Donald's league doesn't. The XFL and the lingerie football league exists, but that's a different conversation.
Yeah, those are different leagues.
Shouts to the lingerie football league. Those women are extremely good athletes.
Oh, I believe it.
And it's actually a fun watch outside of the whole it's actually good to watch athletically. But coming back to the situation with I forgot what I was talking about when I got off the LFL.
Let's talk about Smite. We spend too much time not talking about Smite.
Right. But my point is with the leagues on Counter Strike, they're competing to try and find which will wind up on top,
Yes.
and that'll be a non-developer league, either whether it's Face It or Turner or whatnot. The league will wind up on top, and then they'll be able to be a non-developer league running it. And still, I mean, you still wind up with the same situation.
Yeah.
Either your crown belongs on somebody making the game, or your crown belongs on somebody making the production. Either way, I think it needs to be spread out a little bit more. Hi-Rez is in a spot where we're nice and small, and we're able to make the right decisions, partially because we're small, and we're constantly growing, and our esports department is growing as well with that, just hiring more people more and more.
And actually, the admins are growing too because they go to Cookout a lot.
Cookout's gross. But just the idea of the league working out, I would like in the future. I don't care if developers or production people run the league. I care about there being an overarching moderation. I think there needs to be people outside of the leagues. Whoever runs the league, fine. There needs to be somebody outside of the leagues doing it. Traditional sports just have a ton of people inside the league, and then for bigger situations, they'll consult courts. U.S. courts will be consulted. But whether it's inside the league, outside the league, or otherwise, there needs to be an unbiased portion. Somebody that can facilitate the conversation to make sure that players, teams, and the league are all equally represented. Because if the players don't exist, then the league and the teams can't do shit. If the teams don't exist, then everybody looks amateur. And if the league doesn't exist, well, it's just a bunch of people playing video games in their basements. So, I don't know. The business side of the game is very interesting. It's very young, and that's why everything is so tumultuous. Whereas on the other side, on the gameplay side of things with respect to the SPL, the gameplay is actually pretty mature. I think we've come a couple of years now, and talking specifically about the gameplay, we're at a different point in the world. Last year, not so much. I think last year was the transition period. But you can look at the year before that and the year before that, Season 0 and the first season, was a situation where some teams just won because they were just better at pushing their buttons. Sometimes they were just better players. Now we're in a situation, in both leagues, where Hungry for More and Randozzo's will take games off of the best teams in the world. Everybody's skill level is in a smaller spot. I think this was the spread of skill level previously, and there are still the adaptings, and you're not going to say any names because people will get mad.
Oh, Variety.
No.
I know, but he is the name that you say.
Not anymore.
Well, not you.
Not anymore. I don't think Variety is the guy anymore. I think there are other people. Shouts to Variety still have to be blocked.
Zashu hasn't played well in weeks.
So I think the spread of talent has gone from this, where your adaptings and your bottom of the team, the league, have now squashed to this, where your adaptings and your bottom of the league are still much more in the same conversation. And so...
Oh, the skill is on.
And so the way to win, you're triggering everyone in chat. The way to win...
No, he suggested
it. Adonis says, want me to say Skeleton? So the way that teams are winning isn't off of the brawn of the players just being better at hitting combos and the buttons, but the brains of the players, the shot callers, and the coaches.
All right, so enemies in chat. We were going to talk about this anyway. I just happened to be here, but Pain has ushered in a new era, along with Raffer, I would argue.
Yes, I wouldn't argue. I'd just say it.
Have ushered in... Well, no, because I think a lot of people attribute Panthera's winningness to them just being super good.
Sure.
Right? They're like, oh, yeah, they win adapting.
Duh. Yeah. I mean,
and it's like...
Yaman's mad good.
No, man. Like, I think it's Raffer, I think it's Pain who are ushering in this new era in both sides of the ocean, and it's all about shot calling. Because up until this point, shot calling has not been that much of a thing. It really hasn't.
Because you've just been able to just look at me, basic attack cancel better than you.
Yeah.
Look at me, hit my stuff while you miss your stuff. See you later.
I mean, when I was coaching both Fnatic and Eager, working on shot calling was a big thing for both of those teams. And when the teams are doing very well and they're getting very hyped, it happens because that's what the players, like, that's just sort of natural, right? You get excited, you talk more, you call more. But consistent shot calling all the time does not happen. Or did not happen. And it's starting to. And that's really huge. To compare it to League, Enemy Esports is Cloud9 in their first split, right? These new guys entered in. For them, it was from the Challenger Cup. Hell, for Enemy, it's basically from the Challenger Cup.
Sure.
For Panda Cat. What are your thoughts on Panda Cat?
What are your thoughts on Panda Cat?
I don't really.
Hey, chat, actually, at FDOTNY, let me know your thoughts on Panda Cat. Keep going.
Okay. Panda Cat, Marauder, Verizial came from ranked in the Challenger Cup, and then you've got Chaos, who almost world champion, Pain almost world champion. They're certainly good, but 3 rookies straight from the Challenger Cup, and this team is at the top of the league.
I want to detour real quick. We'll come right back to your point.
Yeah.
People have actually gotten mad at me for calling those 3 players rookies.
Literally rookies!
Like, rookie is not an insult. Rookie is a definition of a player in their first year in a league.
First split, even.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what a rookie is. So, shouts to all the idiots out there on Twitter. Keep going.
So, this team, 3 rookies with Pain and Chaos at the top of the league. I want to call them C9 from League, right? Like, this team coming in, people don't really know what to think of them, coming from the Challenger Cup, having huge amounts of shot calling, and we have seen in the LCS, continuing to this day, Hai's shot calling, the team just falls apart without it.
Yeah.
But that's what's making these teams so strong. That's what's bringing them to the next level. And these other teams need to catch up if they want to compete on that level.
I mean, look at what Randozos was able to do. Now, they've been able to continue on with their success. But I think people were taking notes. Polar Bear Mike came in after, like, honestly, a first half of the split that was, and, you know, I had a conversation with some people on Twitter. Like, Randozos looked fine at the beginning of the early games, and it's hilarious because people don't actually listen to the commentary. That's been my babble all freaking season, is that they know.
And you'll know it's his babble because it's the only thing he says when he has to do color. And then he says, hey, Kevin, what do you think about this? What do you think about Panic Cat?
I want to punch you, but when you're right, you're right. My point is that, like, Randozos were generally an early game team. They identified that, blah, 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 blah. And we're not here to break down what Randozos are doing right, but my point is that Polar Bear, they like, accidentally won a game, right?
Yeah.
They had one win, and hooray for them. And then Polar Bear Mike comes back to the team, and Polar Bear Mike is able to go ahead and provide some shot calling for the squad. And then whether the team internalized that or the team took notes and they're able to move in their own direction, Polar Bear Mike set them up for victory in 1 week. And then this week, they're doing it themselves without the assistance of Polar Bear Mike. And largely has to do with, sure, Walrus is just tearing everybody a new face hole.
Yep.
But also the fact that we're seeing these objective calls. We're seeing, gonna say it, the stuff after the stuff. We're seeing the right calls. It's no surprise that Enemy just routinely get 3 to 4 minute gold furies. We're bored. Let's hit up a Gold Fury.
I mean, dude, like, okay, so...
And there's a lot more conversation for that, which is why the shot calling is so
When I was
important.
coaching, all right, I had this strat. We were scrimming against, at the time, AFK, like, every night.
Mm-hmm.
And we can, like most junglers, would go to a speed buff at exactly 4 minutes. And I said, hey, why don't we ward the speed buff and take the Gold Fury?
Yep.
Because they're going to expect us to be at our speed buff. And what are they going to do? They're going to take our speed buff? We got a Gold Fury. And we did it in a scrim. And we got the speed buff. Or we got the Gold Fury. We got the speed buff too. It was great. That sort of thing, you don't see. And like, there are a lot of
Outside
places,
of the top teams. That's why our top teams...
Until recently. You didn't see that last season at all.
Okay, yeah.
Now, part of it is that... A lot of times, players who aren't professional or aren't at the upper echelons of play or thought about the game will say, oh, why don't players do this? And a lot of times, there are reasons that they just might not know, right? Like, oh, why don't players do this in the duo lane? Well, they can't do that because then they come into wave 2 seconds too late, which means even if they had a winning matchup, they're going to be behind on the creep farm, they get pushed in a tower, and they give up pressure on the left-hand side, which allows the jungler or the support to roam to the mid camp, and then they get an extra level up in mid, and like,
and then my favorite,
it just goes on for like 3 minutes.
Why don't they play Afro support? It's so good. I mean, she's clearly the best support.
Hey man, Polar Mike loves Afro support.
A lot of people love Afro support
She's
until
really
you
fun.
realize that there's no initiation and it's only a single
Yeah.
player and not multiple players, etc. But yeah, so there was this sort of like, I mean, Season 1, the build for Hunters just wasn't ideal.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not even talking about, like, mathematically superior versus practically superior. We're just talking, like, power crit Titan's Bane was just less efficient than other builds. But that was what we did anyway.
Yep.
So there wasn't, like, this level of knowledge or thought being put into the game. And so
Sure.
we're at a point, like I started the conversation off earlier, we're at a point where it's less about who pushes buttons better. Everybody is assumed to be... Skilladon Skilladon is mechanically gifted. He can do the job. He's on a lower end team, and that... My point is that Skilladon is at a certain level, and the level that other players are at,
Not that much higher.
it's not that far apart.
Now, it might be God pulls, right? It might be like,
Sure.
if you just put them in a lane in isolation, it's
Sure.
fine, but... And
But
we've
it's
seen
the
some of
bigger
this
picture
playing
now.
in C9, right? You used to do this thing to Omega that mostly happened in LAN events, finals, semifinals, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where they would pick Fenrir, which is a bad matchup against Bologna,
Yes.
and then they pick Krett, and suddenly it is a very good matchup against Bologna.
Okay.
Right? And, like, that sort of thing is really cool, but that's small-scale shot calling and small-scale strategizing, and we're growing into an area we're entering this new age where the shot calling and the strategy is becoming a lot more complex than that.
Yes.
Which is really, really good. Mm-hmm. Which also will allow coaches to do more than just, figure out drafts and say, good job, team.
This is why we do this. I was about to say that. Now coaches are a little bit more interesting. They're a little bit more exciting. I mean, like you said, in the past, 2 years ago, coach was just your boy that you wanted to come to LAN. Last year, your coach was the guy that kept the spreadsheet of picks and bans.
At one of the LANs at the ESL place in Germany, old C9, EU C9, brought out Scoobs, who is a hip-hop head's shit poster.
That's my boy. Don't talk shit about Scoobs and his Kanye obsession.
He's a great shit poster. One of the best. Follow him at Scooby Doodles.
Young Doodles though.
At Young Doodles though. follow my man Scoobs. But he got taken to a LAN as a coach. He was not a coach.
Yes. So like a couple of years ago, it was just your boy who wanted to come to LAN. Last year, it's the guy who has Excel. And knows how to make a spreadsheet of, this is what we pick, this is what they pick, let's see what we can do. And now this year we're seeing coaches, people like, I'm always going to bring up Drelo because I'm friends with him, but like people like Drelo and people like, give me another coach, any coach.
Fuck man, I don't know.
We're going to see more of these people emerge that do more than just this.
Young Bay actually does actually. I don't know his level of involvement.
Sure, but
every so often there's a team like Panthera that comes along. They just don't need coaching.
Right, and to a certain extent, Enemy has a player coach in Pain.
Yeah.
We heard Chaos. I asked him specifically. I was like, there's a lot of speculation. Who does the shot calling? LOL. Duh, it's Pain. But like, what? And I asked him very like softball. I tried to get him in trouble. Honestly, I was like, so what's it like when Pain calls? How do you guys respond? And he was just super honest. He was like, everybody just shuts up and listens to Pain. It doesn't matter if it's the right call, the wrong call, if we trust in him, we're just going to do that.
And if you look really closely, you can see this. So going to last season, Eager had 2 games that were lost base races, right? Mm-hmm. One of the famous ones was where Divios soloed the Titan. And that was a result of people not listening instantly to endgame shot calls.
Yeah.
If Zap calls end the game, in retrospect, everyone goes, that's what I should have done. I should have done this, or I should have immediately said, no, I'm going to defend. And either of those calls would likely have won us the game.
Yeah, just pick one. Indecision is worse than poor decision.
But, and this is partially my fault, but I tried really, really hard.
It's Krett's fault.
Is getting the team more used to that.
Well,
and getting their shot caller, that pick was perfect.
What about the Thanatos?
Fuck you, that pick was perfect. Getting the team more used to their shot caller, getting their shot caller more consistent, and following their shot caller's calls precisely.
Yes.
So that when they fuck up, it is obvious, it is their fault, and they can fix it.
Yeah.
Because that's the biggest thing, is if you don't follow a call because you think it's going to be bad, then the shot caller doesn't learn that it's bad. They just learn that you didn't follow the call.
And I think I've said this on every single Enemy broadcast that we've done in the past couple of weeks. 5 people following the less than efficient call is better than 3 people following one call, 2 people following the other, and the coach just sitting typing on live journal. If 5 people do the wrong thing, it will wind up being the right thing more often than not, versus 3 people following even if 2 people follow the call, and the correct call is followed by 3 people, it just becomes the incorrect, the incorrect pathing that you need to take to find the win. Everybody needs to be on the same page, whether you're playing Smite, basketball, League of Legends, Counter-Strike, or competitive Chinese checkers. You've got, well, that's a single-player game, but you know what I'm saying.
Sure.
You've got to be on the same page. That's why it's a team, and we don't do it like Code Green and Tier Monster. You're given that opportunity to get a 5-6 group of people, 7 group if you've got a sub, and you're able to go ahead and form this unit that can go ahead and make the right decisions.
So, I think there are 2 big questions in NA about Envy, right?
Yep.
And let's talk about them, because I think this is the perfect talking point on this topic. 1, would Envy have been better if they kept Weekend?
Oh, that's a spicy question.
Absolutely. If they kept Weekend and Incon, assuming the team didn't hate each other and explode, which it very well might have.
That's a thing.
And we can't really account for that. We don't really know the specifics. But assuming they didn't hate each other and explode, and I guess they got MLC Stealth or, someone else to play mid. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. But, like, that team would have done better because of the shot calling and how it was balanced between Incon and Weekend, assuming they were all playing at a decent level, or the level that we had come to expect from them, right?
I mean, the inference that you can draw looking at the Mask situation. As soon as Mask rejoined Denial, he did a lot better, and then Coach Strelo tweeted out that when you're in a comfortable situation on your team, you just perform better. And then Mask said in the post-game interview in one of their games that he was on other teams, he's not guaranteed the follow-up that he gets on Denial. He can make a call and people will follow it. So you can make the inference, I don't like to speak about things that I don't know, but you can make the inference that on Envy, Mask would make a shot call. Not everybody would commit the way that we're seeing Enemy commit to the single shot call. And that created a situation where Mask dives in 1v3, and instead of having the follow-up, he's all by himself. The team doesn't agree, and they go ahead and they get smoked. Weekend, whether or not he's the best jungler in the world, right, whatever the situation is, the shot calling was there. They were able to make it. The joke is Weekend initiation, right? Haha, 667, but he would jump in and everybody would follow.
And the thing is that Envy then, they were Envy at the end of the split, right?
Yes.
Envy actually had very advanced shot calls, which I think is why they were so dominant throughout the split.
Uh-huh.
And the way it was, as explained by Incon and Weekend after a scrim, is that Incon calls the initiations. He says, I'm looking, okay, go.
Right.
And he blinks and Gebbolts. And you can see them do this if you go back and watch the games. He blinks and Gebbolts. Weekend calls a game plan, calls a target. Allied is calling who he's shooting. Because that's his job as Hunter. He can't shoot the priority target, but he's shooting somebody, so that's a secondary target. If you are, hitting the main guy and you're like, shit, I can't get in range, you can go shoot Allied's target too. And they have very advanced shot calling, very advanced communication, which allows them to do so well. To address something that Chachi brought up in chat, though, sometimes teams just hate each other, and part of that is that's the value of a coach, in that they can manage player personalities to an extent, or say, hey, if the coach has the proper authority, which
they should, if they're a
hopefully,
freaking coach. And that's culture.
But they can say, all right, this team is broken. Here's the player problem.
Right, yeah. And that's, and that's the value of coach, and it's something that I've been preaching a long time. It's not just how you approach the game and play the game, but also the culture of the team. And that's why something very important, almost more so than the X's and O's, that Chaos brought up in the post-game interview that we had the other day, was that he was like, look, man, we all just have fun. We all play different games together. We all just do our thing. Like, we're all a family, for lack of a better term. They're there, and that culture is very important because, sure, you can be a soldier like Wolfie or like Omega, and they're just going to follow your call because that's the type of guy they are. Not everybody's like that. And to instill that sort of culture where, like, everybody's listening to Pain no matter what. Sure, part of it is just because, hey, we've got respect for you, you're doing your thing, you've been doing it before us. But there's also, like, that's my boy Louie. Like, he's going to do it. Meatloaf's the man. He's going to make the right call. Yeah. He made the right call last night when we were playing Paladins, Overwatch, Call of Duty, whatever the hell we're playing, he's doing it. So when it comes time to, like, we're all friends here. When it comes time to go to work, that's my boss.
Right.
That's the guy I'm listening to. And, like, all of that outside stuff might sound funny and ha-ha. But I always go back to that tweet from Drelo.
So,
it's important.
To clarify what I was saying about how it's a coach's job, first of all, it's a coach's job. It's not a manager's job.
Yeah,
managers handle business.
Yeah.
That's what's managing is.
Paperwork and stuff
like that. A coach's job is two things. One, you've got the authoritative side of coaching, which is strategies, saying, hey, you do this, this is how you're going to play, which doesn't really work until you have coaches that have been doing it for like 4 or 5 years and they know how to make star teams and they're working with a certain type of player. And then you've got the other side of coaching, which is participative, where they are a part of the team, they manage personalities, they manage teamwork, and then they work with their team to generate strategies. That is a huge part of coaching. Now, granted, sometimes your team is just going to hate each other, and if the coach isn't a part of that, which depends on their style of coaching and how they are, if they're not a part of that rift, and even if they are, they should be able to point out to whoever owns the team and be like, listen, these players, these two, hate these two, you're going to have to get new players after the end of the split. And that
It sucks when they're
but
good,
it happens.
and it happens. And famous example, you'll be alienated a bit, but you know what? You won't be, which makes this example so good. Basketball. Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal were on the same team.
Yeah.
You don't have to understand that they play two different positions and that they coexist perfectly. That their two gameplays worked out fantastically together. It was the perfect combo. But they didn't like each other.
It doesn't work.
And so they won a little bit. And what could have been a bazillion-year dynasty was cut short like that because they just don't work together. And that's okay.
It just sucks.
Yeah.
Because it would have been a lot of money. It would have been a lot of winning.
It totally sucks. But, like, in order to get back to a point of winning, you have to have... Not everybody has to be, like, super BFF and hang out all the time. But there, at the very least, has to have a mutual respect.
Yep.
And that is the bare minimum.
And once that's broken, if that's ever broken, team's fucked.
Exactly.
Question 2. Omega in the jungle. So far, it's been weird and shitty.
Yeah.
He bought Wrath, which, first of all, Cyclone just said, hey, do this, let's get to lane first, which, like, totally Cyclone would do. And, you know, I saw it. I tuned in because I was working. I tuned in about 5 minutes. I'm like, oh, he bought Wrath. That's fine. He's Hercules. He doesn't need beads. And then he got a wheelish pole and died. And I was like, I guess he does need beads. But it's fine. It's Hercules. It's Omega. He can do it.
Which I was rooting for the Herc jungle for a
Sure.
long time.
And, you know, Omega's jungling is a little bit weird. But I think... I mean, Omega is one of the best SPL players of all time.
I completely agree.
Inarguably.
Completely agree.
He's entirely proven throughout his career that that so far, he's one of the most celebrated players. He's double world champion.
He's proven that he's done it, that he can do it in the solo lane.
Right, and I don't give a shit about can he do it in the jungle. The dude's been playing games since he was born.
I'm trying to make you say that he's proven that he can do it in the solo lane, but more so than that, not just the gameplay. His mindset in the game has proven that he just knows Smite very well.
Right, sure. I think in the jungle, he can put himself in a position where he can call for his team, be more impactful for his team, and take the amount of stuff that he's doing in the solo lane and take it to a next level. Once again, going to LCS high, right? Like, he's like mid lane, okay, I'm going to be in the jungle now. I'm going to be in the support role now because now I can really call for my team, even if I don't know the role that well.
If I'm making a fantasy squad, I'm not putting Omega on it, but that's why fantasy is dumb. If I'm making a real squad, I'm going to invite Omega to my jungle.
Assuming you can't put Pain or Raffer on it.
Sure, right? But you know, even if you can, I'm fine with bringing Omega in the jungle. Just don't expect instant results.
No.
If Envy doesn't make it to DreamHack, that's okay. They're shooting for Worlds.
I don't think you'll see Omega on Envy next split. But either way, I think Omega should stay in the jungle.
LG.
I mean, that seems sort of obvious, right? Like
that's the super obvious.
If Scary D doesn't work out the way they want him to, and it's like, we're an amazing team with a hole in the solo lane. Which former teammate should we invite back?
And actually, in this conversation, I feel very fiercely about this, and this is something that I disagree with many people. Do you have an issue with how much Omega changes teams?
No. Gives a shit his business.
Every little internet fuckboy sits out there and goes, you know, Omega has no loyalty.
Oh, no loyalty. Like, fuck loyalty.
No, I don't agree it's fuck loyalty. I think loyalty is important, but to a certain extent.
Well, loyalty is important in that you're not, like, colluding.
Sure. And what I like about Omega is he's been on a bunch of different teams, but never once has he burned a bridge. Never once has he really, at least to my knowledge.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, I would know, not because I have my ear to the ground and I secretly speak to pros, but because you wouldn't wind up on a team.
Yeah.
Where's Takati?
He burned a lot of bridges real quick.
And so Omega, he's leaving these squads. It's not like he's just like, yo, I'm gonna leave and not tell anybody and you're gonna find out from your friend, right? He's not like, yeah, I can play today. Just kidding, I'm on a different team. He's not taking your strategies and sharing with, like, he's just going, all right, look. And another thing, he's not leaving quickly. It's not like, here I'm on a team, a week later, peace out, see you later, it's not going to work. He puts in the time and the effort. He gives it a shot. And, you know, he left C9 because he wasn't having fun. And that wasn't directly related to winning. He just wasn't having fun. So he moved to Eager, and he was having more fun there. And then from there, whether or not he was still having fun, then he wanted to win. Right? There's different reasons to leave. And a lot of people on the internet have a big, big problem with Omega leaving.
A lot of people on the internet have a lot of problems.
Yes. But like, and I just think that when it comes down to it, the conversation of does Omega team swap too much is absolutely not even the thought of saying yes to that is wrong. The thought of that being a relevant topic of conversation is wrong, because the goal in the SPL is to win. Yeah. You want to play with your friends, and that puts you in a better position to win, but the goal is to win. You don't get extra... We don't give you extra seed points if you stick on a team.
It's also, like, it's not scummy. Like,
no!
It's just business. Loyalty is for people who want to stay on a 7th place team for their entire career.
Sure, and I don't mind a little bit of loyalty. I think there's something to be said about, because of my loyalty, I'm giving you guys... I'm giving us extra time to work it out.
Sure.
I trust you guys. That's important. You guys are my friend. And you know what? I deeply believe in this, and I think Omega's in that spot with Envy. Yeah. Where do I think he'll leave?
He's not the dude who's going to leave mid-split.
Exactly.
Which is important.
And sure, now he's roster locked, but he could have left in week 3.
Yeah, he totally could have.
They were negative 6-8 coming into the bye week. They were negative. If Omega's the dude that just wants to bail because they're not winning, I'm already gone. I'm already gone. Snoopy isn't working out. I'm already gone. I'm calling up LG. Yeah. Maybe he has issues with the team, like chat saying, I don't really know. But my point is, there are other options. Even if he wants to go, I mean, there are other teams.
Dude, it's Omega. You can find a team that is performing better than 6-8.
And rarely do you say no to Omegatron, right? Like, you're just not going to say no to that. So, I mean, it's just... You don't get a LAN invite because you stayed on a bad team. You get a LAN invite because you are on a good team.
Yeah.
I have no issue with Omega switching around. And with that in mind, Envy, they're having problems. They're working through it. If Envy wind up even or positive, does Omega stay on this team next split?
I mean, it's not about even or positive, right? It's just, is there progress?
Okay.
Is there an obvious improvement in the way this team is working? And if there is, then I think he'll stay.
All right.
If there isn't, then I think he'll leave. And I think most people... I think if the team does not show progress, it will split.
So people were saying that he doesn't go to LG. Previously, he played with a lot of those guys in Cloud9.
Sure.
And left because he wasn't having fun.
Yeah.
Do you think that's something that lasts this long? Is that something that
I don't think
players can be professional and put it behind themselves?
Part of it is you're referencing he isn't having fun. And, like, that's not how you make esports decisions. It's Omega. That's how you advertise. This should be news to nobody.
Mm-hmm.
I think you take the opportunity, knowing the experience you have had in the past.
Sure.
Knowing the lay of the land in the SPL. I think you just, you look at your opportunities and you take whatever is best, and he'll decide, and he's, dude, it's Omega. Like, he's gonna make a good decision.
Yes, I agree.
So maybe he jungles for fucking Soar. Maybe he solo lanes for LG. Maybe he jungles for Eager. I don't know. It doesn't matter. He's going to have a good spot because there are players in the league that Omega can replace. In my opinion.
Yes.
I think more of Omega than most people, but, like, dude, I think he can replace Perm in a heartbeat. I think he could replace Homafay.
Whoa.
Perm sucks.
Whoa. That's my DJ Perm. That's my Perm. He's improved. Eager has improved.
Yeah, improved, yeah. That's nice.
Long term, I think DJ works out fine for Eager. I don't think there's an issue there. You got me distracted with the DJ. But Omega, no, I've been on the Omega hype train since I started getting into Smite. Yeah. It's very hard to really denounce what he brings, and I think he's one of the top players in NASPL. And I think that if you're a team looking for
all right, wait, saying that a pro player sucks in the opinion of an analyst. Now maybe that is not the best way to word it.
Right.
I would argue.
Yeah, sure.
But that is not an insult.
So,
and I need to be explicitly clear about that. I've been talking about Smite professionally for 3 years now, 2 years now.
Yep.
That's not an insult.
So, I mean, it totally is because of your word choice, but if you boil it to, and like...
But that's not what I mean.
Exactly, and I mean, like, I couldn't say that, right?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say that. And I actually, I tweeted something out about this earlier on, and we'll just touch on it because this is a ridiculous conversation.
Sure.
When pundits, talking heads, assholes, analysts, whatever you want to call what we do on here, really, what I do on First Period, what we do at the SPL, Adonis, Hindu Man, Anatoly. You also have a couple of people like Zimstar and... Please, Bob Coley, get involved. Please, Polar Bear Mike, get involved. These people have opinions about the players. And when these opinions are given out, it's in the context of the SPL. Nobody's sitting there saying the Randozos are going to go ahead and lose to your shithead intramurals post-high school team.
Yes.
But in the grand scheme of NASPL, the Randozos are not as good as some of the top-end teams. Do they have the potential to get there? Absolutely. They wouldn't have been in the SPL otherwise.
Right.
But at the moment, they're just not as strong as some of the other teams. It's all about the context. Every single team, SPL, NFL, LCS, whatever, every single team that has earned their way into a professional organization that is a league based on merit and competition has done the hard work and proven that they are strong enough to be some of the best of the best of the best, sir. But at the end of the day, there is always a worst of the best. And we might not phrase it like this player sucks or this team is bad. We might use some nice superlatives like this team is struggling, this guy needs improvement, he's not at the top of the crop. But the point remains, when we're saying a player is bad, whatever adjective we use, that idea is in context. Even when you compare the worst NBA team to the best college Division I team, it's laughed at by anybody professional because the teams that have proven to be in a professional league are going to be better than anybody. Whether they're the worst team in the league, they're better than anyone you can find because they've earned their way into the league. So the further conversation about no SPL player is bad, you're totally right. Every single SPL player will take you to the cleaners in your game. However, in the grand context of the league, there are players and teams that are better than the teams that they are better than. And that conversation is something that needs to be had. Maybe you don't harp and maybe you don't spend your entire conversation on negativity, but I don't believe in a world of participation ribbons. It's a world where everything is included equally. We have a conversation about the SPL. You have a conversation about Envy versus Randozos. Yes, Randozos shot calling looks better. Skeleton stepped it up, and Walrus is an absolute important part to what this squad is able to do. But also, Omega Jungle didn't work yesterday.
Yeah.
And that is part of the conversation. And is it rude to mention that somebody didn't do well? No. That's the conversation. So you can argue that media like this doesn't need to exist, but it does. We're here to converse about the Pro League, and sometimes it's not all rainbows and lollipops.
So to qualify my statement, DJ Pernicus is a good player, but I do not think he has found an established playstyle in the jungle that suits him and fits the metagame for the past few seasons.
So if DJ Pernicus goes ahead and finds a playstyle, is he better?
I don't know.
Okay.
I flat out don't know. I don't think this DJ Pernicus is all that he can be, because I don't know what he can be.
I like the way you phrased that, because the reason that I'm so high on DJ Pernicus, and I always have been, is because of that conversation that we had before about coaching and in-game leadership and stuff like that. And actually, that's why I'm excited about DJ here. There have been extenuating circumstances that puts DJ in a bad spot, and he hasn't been able to practice, blah, 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 blah. No Johns, he's just not performing well. But historically, DJ Pernicus has been an in-game leader in multiple games, specifically Counter-Strike.
Sure.
He was known, however you pronounce it, Tyson backwards. That was his handle. You know Hiko, Liquid Hiko, one of the best North American players in Counter-Strike right now, he has stated that DJ Pernicus was a big part of his career, one of the best in-game leaders he's ever played with, and I forget if he used the word inspiration, but it was very heavy words like that. That's valuable. I will never negate that. And I think that DJ bringing that into this season, his gameplay has to take a step up. But that mindset is something that I want on my team.
I just want to
Just
know.
like you take Omega into the jungle, let him flounder for a while because you know the potential is there. DJ has to pick up the gameplay. But the knowledge is there. And if I'm Zapman, etc., I'm going to trust that it'll catch up.
I just don't know what his playstyle is. Is he a carry playing Ratatoska or Circuit? Is he a supportive player playing Guan Yu? I don't know.
Verizial does it all. Why can't DJ? Because he can't do it all.
Because Verizial, and by extension the rest of Enemy, are piloted by Pain.
Sure.
Which gives them a massive advantage over everyone else, and they look much better than they are. Now, that's not to say that they're bad, but you've just got this advantage that no other team in North America has right now, and it just makes everything look better.
I mean,
because real talk, these rookies, it's really unlikely that Pain just found about 3 magical rookies that are better than everyone. It could happen, but it's really unlikely.
I'll tell you that is certainly true when it comes to Panda Cat.
Yeah.
I mean, we did the Challenger Cup. We watched Legion.
Yeah.
We watched Legion many times run with Panda Cat and Pain and Pern, right? We saw Panda Cat perform in the Challenger Cup. I know how good Panda Cat is. And so when he came up to the league, my only concern was, will he be timid? Will he be
but he's a player that is able to compete on the same level as I think Verizial is, as I think Marauder is, but I think it is Pain, his in-game leadership, and the hot streak that Enemy is on that is allowing them to excel and exceed the other players that are established and incredibly proficient in their roles.
I mean, Rafford did the same thing, right? He found adapting, right? Now adapting's adapting.
He didn't find the difference is that these were players that already had themselves well established in the challenger scene.
Well established is pushing it, but yes, I agree with you.
Very well established. Like, okay, adapting was the player that iRaffer on I5 was a challenger jungler.
Yes.
Right? He was this team that wasn't really that great, but they had this jungler they put in, and he was amazing.
Yep.
And he took the team to new heights, and he left.
Yes.
And they replaced him with adapting, and this jungler that proved to be amazing and took the team to new heights. And so he goes, yeah, that guy. Yamin was a player that had been around the competitive scene for a long time, had not really played in it, but everyone who played with him was like, dude, this guy is really good. So, Emilito had been in the competitive scene and had played multiple roles to a very high level, and Dimmy was similar to Yamin, right? Like, players that are also similar to Boosh. Players that were just sort of hanging out with pros, playing arena games with them, and just shitting on everyone.
I mean, Dimmy's my personal told you so. I remember watching Dimmy when I first got into Smite, like not first got in, but first started doing stuff with Smite. And I remember watching Dimmy in community tournaments and Challenger Cup, going, this guy is going to be on the top of. Well, there wasn't an SPL at that time, but this guy is going to be on the top of Smite, and I swear, ninja or nah, he's gonna be on the top. You know?
Totally. And part of it is also that, like, I think it is easier than it seems to take players out of a situation where they're completely unproven and put them on a good team and see them excel.
Yeah.
We've seen Baskin do it. We've seen Polar Bear Mike do it. We've seen... Oh, man, who else? There's one other guy in my head, but I think I forgot who. But, like, Baskin, Polar Bear Mike, perfect example. Players that... Like, Baskin played ranked, and Polar Bear Mike was on Resist and laned with Nantan, and, like... You just got put into the SPL on a good team, and they did really well. So a lot of that is a team that can support these players.
Right.
And Pain can do that entirely by himself.
And I think that's what
what I was going to say is, like, yeah, Dimmy and Yamin have this history at Boosh, this history about being around the competitive scene and being very, very good. Marauder's history is they used to snipe DM Brandon.
And
then he played ranked.
I know Marauder from being... like, scum chat more than anything else. I know, like, my relationship with Marauder has more to do with Smite Game than the SPL.
Yes.
Me and Marauder, when I was streaming on Smite Game, Marauder would go ahead and he was, and you'll see us make this joke on Twitter and stuff. Marauder was, I would play my casuals, and this was when mid-Harpy camps were a big deal, and he would just be like, yo, F. Mid-Harpies respawn at 417, got you, bro. And he would put it in my Smite Game chat. And honestly, I used it a lot and I won a lot because of it. I mean, that's coaches and comms. Different conversation for next week.
So,
but like, you know, that's where Marauder comes from me. He's a Smite game troll like me. Yeah. These guys come out of nowhere, and I think that a lot of people can be introduced into the ecosystem, whether it's Challenger Cup, SPL, right? A lot of people can be introduced into the ecosystem of Smite that aren't currently in the clique. That is pro
part
players.
of it is also that a lot of these players came from Team Resist. Now, dude, like, Team Resist in the Challenger Cup has always been, like, pretty good. But they've never been like, oh, yeah, that's the team that's going to make it in the SPL. Because they haven't. Partially because they keep getting players poached.
They're the farm
but, like,
team.
They haven't.
They're the farm team.
But, like, all these players coming for this team, Chaos, Polar Bear Mike, Marauder, like, they're all doing really, really well, and it's because they're being put in situations where they can succeed.
And that's my point with Enemy, and to a lesser extent Raffer, more for Enemy because Pain has done it twice now, is the fact that, you said it before, Pain created a system or an environment where these guys could succeed, right? And Pain creates, Pain versus other players, whatever it is, I'm not going to pretend to know what happens behind closed doors, but whatever the reason is, other teams like Eager, Polar Bear Mike worked on Eager. Not many other players could have worked in that spot, right? You take a look at some of the other players. Chaos, right? Chaos is more to the enemy. But Polar Bear Mike worked on Eager, and not many players could have worked on Eager. Polar Bear Mike did. Many players can work in a Pain to Beyond system. Whenever Pain's done playing Smite, which is nowhere near done. I'm not like he's a fantastic player, etc. Whenever Pain's done, if he doesn't become a coach, or to a further extent, a CGO, let alone an own, whether he owns his own company, right, organization, or a CGO, Chief Gaming Officer. That's what I think Barn does that for Dick. No, he doesn't. But that's what Karn does for Fnatic. You're an ex-player that can identify. Pi is basically the CGO for C9.
He just keeps having to play.
Yeah, exactly. You identify the talent, you can create the teams, basically.
Yeah.
Pain is an extremely valuable CGO.
Yeah.
And, like, I mean, I won't be surprised if Pain's done playing Spire in, like, 4 or 5 years, right? And Enemy's just, like, larger organization. Pain joins Enemy as CGO. He has a fantastic ability to not only identify talent that's going to work well together, and then create the environment for that talent to succeed. Raffer did it once. If he had to do it again, I envision that he would be able to, but luckily for him,
he doesn't have to. Looking at some of the other rookies from the season, right? Two big success stories. Oceans, done very well.
A successful team with Ron, which I think every team in the SPL has potential to be a good team at this moment. Which is not me being political because I had a conversation on Twitter earlier today. It's me just noticing the difference between this year, last year, and the year before. Mirans were never going to be a good team.
Who has been supporting for a long time. So it wasn't a winning team, but it was a winning lane.
And that's a situation where Oceans, whether or not Allegiance goes ahead and becomes a successful team with Ron, which I think every team in the SPL has potential to be a good team at this moment. Which is not me being political because I had a conversation on Twitter earlier today. It's me just noticing the difference between this year, last year, and the year before. Mirans were never going to be a good team. Or a top team, I should say, to be political. They were never going to be that guy. Like, Justice was never going to go to Worlds, right? This time around, Hunger for More can take the turnaround. Randozo's can take the turnaround. And because of that, I think there's a bigger conversation there.
And then on the other hand, on the other side, Jiffy and Skilladon, I don't think Jiffy and Skilladon are significantly worse in their roles. Or not even, I don't think Jiffy and Skilladon are... God, they're not much worse at all.
The conversation
than Brazil.
I mean, the conversation about Jiffy coming into the... So, like, my conversation about Skilladon, I have watched Skilladon play Smite at a high level.
He's super good.
And I expect Skilladon to go ahead and be successful in the SPL. Whether or not he's been given the tools to do so, different story. Same thing with Jiffy. Nowadays, I'm actually pretty close friends with Jiffy. We sort of, like, dance in the same circles. But... I didn't know Jiffy Jiffy was an unknown name to me until he was being discussed about being the possible replacement for Captain Twig on Fnatic. And every single person I spoke to, which was a number of people, said, hey, look, Jiffy is this guy that just crushes it.
Yeah.
He's so good. Now he's an asshole. He's a BM dude, which is why he's never been on a team. But he's turned things around, and now he's looking to go find a team. And you got to watch out because everybody's aware that when he gets on your team, he's in ranked. He's going to yell at you. When he gets on your team in houses, he might be kind of dicky, but he's going to do his job and he's going to win. And so, like we said, culture's important, which is why maybe he wasn't looking for a team or otherwise, but culture's important, so he didn't find a home last year. This year, he's a little bit different from anecdotally, and he's able to go ahead and be on a team. If everybody, SPL players included, are singing the praises of you, you're a good player. He hasn't been successful in the SPL, and I don't think that has anything to do with his individual talent level. As we said, I think the levels that separate the top players from the bottom players are much smaller than it used to be.
Yeah, totally. And a lot of what makes a rookie successful is the environment that they're in.
I mean, as a coach, what's the best way? If there were teams out there, SPL or otherwise, I doubt the SPL players are going to actually listen to our advice. But if you're making a Challenger Cup team, if you're a team that has 4 players and you think you're pretty good, what's the best call? How do you best approach that? How do you best get people? What can people take home to ensure that their squad is a good environment to attract new players?
You got to talk to people, man. You got to talk to your... have you ever had a group of friends? Oh, okay.
No, yes.
Yeah. So you just gotta you gotta talk to people. You gotta manage your relationships. You gotta be good friends, be good people to each other. Be respectful. Don't ever call anyone else stupid. Don't ever do anything that could break that respect because once it's gone, you're fucked.
Make an environment that you want to show up to. Make an environment where the desire is to improve.
It's the same way you be successful in any other group ever, right? Whether it's a group project at school or a team you work in at work, whatever, it's the same damn thing.
I mean, think about the worst job you ever had and how Monday sucks.
Yeah.
Wednesday's my Monday. I love it, dude.
Yeah.
I get up to go to work, and sure, I get a little extra sleep because we go in a little bit later. But Wednesday's my Monday. I get up to go to work, and guess what I'm going to do? I have my job is fun, but the people around me create a cool environment. I know that it's just my friends. I'm actually blessed with Rock and Nick Pye are like my 2 friends that I talk to a lot, and we'll talk Smite from time to time. But they'll tune me out, and I know it. When I go to work on Wednesday, and I'm like, yo, did you hear about Moex and Game Hunter making the swap? Hindu Man's like, yo, I know! Yes! It's so crazy! And Kevin's like, yeah. Right.
That's not what Kevin is like. Okay, that's what Kevin is like, yep.
But there is an environment where I want to go. Totally is more like, yes, I agree. There's an environment where all 4 of us, and when Bart was here, it was the same, and when Allied came into the office, it was the same, and when Brandon came into the office, it was the same, where there is a conversation about the SPL. We're all really passionate about it, and it's not a go through the motions type thing. We're all really excited. Yeah. We're all really amped up about what's going on with the SPL, about what's going on with the SCL, even Paladins to a lesser extent. We're just excited to see what's going on.
Lesser?
It's newer, that's why.
Okay.
We're excited to go ahead and see these changes. Kevin recently got us a big old whiteboard. It's very cool, and we have the standings up on top. You have the standings other places, like online and stuff. But just having the standings there as a constant reminder, and you internalize it a little bit more. And we've got talking we wrote talking points like, hey, keep an eye on Frezzy, and then underneath it, holy shit, Frezzy's good, right? It's fun to engage in these conversations, and it creates an environment where I want to come to work on Wednesday. Yes, my job is fun, but more than that, I want to have the conversation with Hindu, Adonis, and Poli, because we just have this environment where we all share an office.
Man, every time,
it's dope.
Dude, I stopped by on Wednesday, I think. I was getting lunch, and then I was just there talking to the boys for 45 minutes, because Toli was there, we were talking about the SPL, and I was like, everyone just loves the game, and that's what makes that successful, and that's the same thing for working in a team. And everyone has to be passionate. You have to have drive, and you have to realize it's going to be a grind.
And sometimes there are days when not everybody comes in yo, I dreamt about the SPL last night, and I'm going to talk about it. At the end of the day, things are a job, and sometimes the grind can get to you. That's why the culture and the people are important. Specifically, specifically, Thursday, I had a terrible cast.
Yeah.
I'm very internal, and like I had a terrible broadcast, and it was neither here nor there. My teammates, because that's what I call my co-casters, my teammates notice this, right? And they give me my space. And then when I come in on Friday, Hindu Man makes it a point like, hey, you all right? Like, you want to talk about anything, right? And, you know, I took him up on that offer. And you know what happened? Friday, I had one of the best damn casts I had all split. Because that culture's there. I know that I can talk to my teammates. I know that Kevin's going to support me in whatever I do. I know that, you know, Toli's brand new, but he's going to come to us for support. Hindu Man and I, we know that we're equals. We know that that's happening. And that's the environment that you need to find on your team, right? I know that, you know, Toli's brand new, but he's going to come to us for support. Hindu Man and I, we know that we're equals. We know that that's happening. And that's the environment that you need to find on your team. We're like, look, dude, I just streamed for 8 hours. We got a scrim for 4. I fucking hate it. And it's like, you know what? I feel you on that, but like, come on, let's go out there and get that win. We're 8-8. If we get this next series, we're going to be in the 4th spot. Maybe we go to Sweden. Maybe we pop bottles with Zimstar. Like, let's go for it. It's going to be fun, right? And now, all of a sudden, now you're a little bit more interested. Yeah. That culture is something that I've been preaching forever. It's very important. That's going to do it for us. We talked a little bit of business. We talked a little bit of gameplay. And then at the end, we talked a little bit about, well, I don't know. I think this Julia Robert Cup got to me.
I actually got it for free.
Live life. Love life.
That's
that
right.
is my ending statement to everybody out there.
Came with my apartment.
Did it really?
Yeah.
You found the little hole of Connecticut in Georgia.
I know, it's great, isn't it?
You really did.
Speaking of which, this weekend you want to play some tennis?
Some what?
Tennis.
Tennis?
Tennis.
Oh, you said it funny. Yes, I know. Yes, hey everybody! Krett has a tennis court next to his house.
I'm from Connecticut.
I have a dumpster next to my house because I'm from New York.
The dumpster's down the street.
Is there anybody in chat? You guys have any questions? We got like 5-10 minutes. We'll answer. I guess we'll answer a couple of questions. What is this place? A basement? No, Krett's got a nice place actually. It's hilarious that the one spot we not even chose to, the one spot that we can shoot is the unfurnished spot.
Yep.
We're looking at art. There's art on the wall right there, a very nice abstract piece. He's got a whole bunch of doohickeys and stuff, some lighting, like a couch. That's more than I can say. Like, you have a nicely furnished apartment.
In fact, I think our last show, it went down and it came back up. We were on the second stage,
it's true.
Which is my couch.
And here is just barren. So.
Yeah.
High-res APC says 203, 203, 203. I don't actually know what that means.
Yo, that's the area code of...
that's...
Connecticut has 2 area codes, 203 and 860, and we don't talk about 860.
Well, see, that's what I'm saying. Connecticut don't even have a cool area code. You can be like, yo, shouts to the 212, or whatever Pitbull fucking says about Miami, shouts to Chapo. But, like, you know, you can be Drake and be like, yo, I'm from the 6, Toronto. But, like, 203?
Yeah.
203?
203? It's like 303, that shitty rapper.
Merle wants to know if he can move in.
This is a 1-bedroom, but you can crash on the couch for a few days.
There you go. SCL's in a real league, and you know it. Actually, seriously, like I'm not in my high risk capacity despite the suit. I'm not high res FSR right now. SCL is actually really dope to watch. The guys and the people involved on the North American side specifically, but I'm getting to know the European side. There's so much personality there, and for me, in a game like Smite's an individual driven game. Yeah. It's a team game, but just like basketball, there's 5 players and one of them's going to stand out, right? And like, yeah, it was a funny figure to choose, but one of them's going to stand out. And like, the individuals drive it. Chapo has gone from like 0 viewers to a bazillion because he's a funny dude. He's a cool
Chapo's gotten from 0 viewers to a car.
That's
like,
true.
He actually went 0 to 100 because you know Chapo drives 100.
And like the personalities in the SCL are good. And just for what it's worth, is there a talent drop off? Not on every player.
Yeah.
I think holistically you can say that there is a slight step back, but not as much as the memes would really make you believe. It's and not for nothing, APC brings up a big part. It hasn't started yet. You could watch any open bracket tournament on PC,
yeah,
and you're gonna see trash. you're going to see trash. Especially when it comes down to where the teams are only qualified, how much do they really care. The show matches this weekend weren't a good deal. I know I sound like a corporate shill. I get it.
You are a corporate shill.
I'm not, and I actually really...
Look at that watch.
This is a citizen, okay? And for what it's worth, I bought this a long time ago.
Okay.
I know I sound like a corporate shill, but seriously, I'm not Mr. High-Res right now. I legitimately enjoy watching the SCL, and I'm excited for when that league goes ahead and starts. So,
I saw someone ask, who are the people in Hi-Res that decide new skins and design them? The art team and the game deskins.
Yeah. Then was that with respects to esports? That's the admins who allow what skins are allowed in, what skins are allowed in the SPL and stuff.
Yep.
That's all admins, and I'm sure they have like a reasoning. My reasoning when people ask me is always like some skins provide a competitive advantage, and then I tell you to go ask the admins because I just yell about the game. I don't really know about that stuff. Who's the best dancer at Hi-Res?
There's got to be someone who's like really good.
There's definitely somebody that's really good. The only one that I can think of,
David.
David, maybe when it comes to like club dancing.
I think David's dancing is going to generate the most fun.
Sure. Savannah, one of our community managers, she has a theater background, so she probably can do Fosse like the best of them. So there's that. Views from the Six. Shut up, Ron Jobbert. 631, we got Chief Geef in the house, represent Strong Island, 631. That's the shitty side, by the way, 516. But still, Long Island's better than Connecticut as a whole, and we're fine with that. Shout out to Ice Baby. Sweet, he loses more than anyone in the top 50 of Grandmasters. That's pretty sweet. Can we talk hockey? Yes, the last Long Island team, which moved to Brooklyn, the last Long Island team in professional sports has got knocked out. Weekend lives in 667.
Nice.
If there is a 667 area code, I will contribute 50 cents to Weekend moving there.
I've got another 50 somewhere. I think it'll change over there.
Todd is the best answer. APC says Todd is the best answer.
I believe it.
He borrows a lot. I could actually answer this one specifically. Yep. The bigger Hebo model, the new Hebo model, when you have water spout and you position it at your feet, you actually can't see, if you're on slow, non-instant cast, you can't see the target.
Personally, I've never had a problem with that because they're right in front of you. Like, what the fuck do you need to aim for?
Right.
But, like,
it's a comfort thing. Players have been playing on that model for 2 years, so it's just like, yeah, okay, you can play that.
Yo, Pataglia. First of all, my tax guy's name is Petralia, so that's kind of funny. But Pataglia, speak nice about the 516. Yo ABC. Actually, he's a good Smite player. Look at that.
Yeah, he's a SCL boys.
Yeah, look at that. Hell yeah. Chief Keef, I'm going to smack you. Yeah. Suffolk all day. You can have Chaos, I'll take Jeff. That's actually true. So, Chaos, Long Island. Jeff Hindler, Long Island. I was going to say Bacchus. Baskin, Long Island. Zapman, Long Island. Me, Long Island. And then extending to the greater New York City area. Allied, Wolfie. Upstate, we've got some more. Smite is a New York league.
I've got Penyumba and TV.
Penny and TV? Yeah, dude. Penny's my guy.
Yeah, Connecticut. That's right.
You've got the personality, and you've got APC as well. So
and Dan.
APC and Dan. What do I think about the CC setup this time around? Yes, the information was just released about the Challenger Cup. I have to dive in a little bit about it. I'm gonna tweet out and put that information on Reddit tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. Tier Monster is hosting it as well, just like last time, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll take a look. Why doesn't Hi-Res create their own SPL team to compete?
It's weird to give yourselves money.
Sure, and also just ridiculous conflict of interest.
And would be bad.
Well, sure, would be bad, but
except for Pecky's.
Krett and I spent an hour. The first half of the show was really talking about the business side of things and how like things are shady when one person owns an organization or the league in general. If we had a team, all of the rules would obviously be built around us winning. Yeah. You can only have members on your team that are,
if your team doesn't have Peckies, you lose.
Yeah. If you don't have Peckies and Krett, you're ineligible to join the SPL. Oh, wait, it's just one team? Sweet, we get all the money.
That's weird that all of this prize money just went to us.
Has there ever been a caster in the ranking of the top 20 of Grandmasters before? Doubtful.
Probably. Well, Grandmasters didn't exist until this season.
Sure. I think you're looking at, as far as commentary, and talent, you're looking at Allied and Brandon more so than Pecky's is a caster.
Yeah, Pecky's is caster. You got pretty high up.
Pecky's not a caster though.
Oh no, yeah.
Just like the commentary team, me, Brandon, Bart, Scott, Gandhi,
so part of
Allied,
it is that it's really hard to judge because Grandmasters didn't exist until recently. Masters last year bloated.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I don't know if that really counts.
But and then
I mean, Allied was a professional player. Anatoly was a professional player. Adonis laned with Pain.
And
I laned with Anister like twice.
Sweet.
Yeah.
And
KO.
Not a large
He's on
conversation.
Tempo
Not a large conversation we're going to get into.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's necessary to be a commentator.
It's absolutely necessary. You can't have an opinion about the game if you've never played it well.
I'm going to punch you so hard, Krett. But no, I fiercely believe that you, and not just because of my own involvement. I don't think you need to play the game at a high level too either. Look at it strategically, be an analyst, be a commentator, even be a coach. Coach, I'm still pushing it a little bit, but I actually think it's ridiculous that, like...
Well, it depends what a high level is.
Sure. LCS has problems with players just not respecting their coach because they're in like silver or something. Yeah. I think that's I think that's irrelevant.
Dude, your coach should be able to get past silver if they're actually good.
Sure.
They should be able to get to diamond or masters, but also like it's fucking ranked. Who gives a shit?
Ranked is different than a solo queue is much different than a 5 queue. Even if you're 3-man queuing, it's a much different situation.
Theoretically,
it's a time commitment as well.
You should be able to play your coach and not get completely shit on by the worst team in the league.
I don't necessarily agree with that.
Well, okay, so the exception to that is mechanics, right? Like your coach's mechanics might not be there,
yeah,
and their fiddly stuff might not be there because a lot of times, like you don't have to coach your dual lane doing the exact perfect like positioning in laning phase
that's why you're on the team.
That's their job.
That's why you're on the team,
right? But your coach should be able to play the game at a high level because they should know the game at a high level.
Most league casters have fairly high divisions and have restrictions on that. They definitely don't have restrictions on that, and I doubt that they are actually high level. Just because
some of their casters are very good.
Just being very good, but being high in ranked is different.
No, they've got like actual they've got a lot of former professional casters.
Right. My point being to be a commentator at the level that LCS does, you're putting in 40 to 50 hours a week in the office.
Yes.
And then you're going home and doing homework.
Yes.
Preparation. Learning on your own time.
The fact that Crepo, Jet, Quickshot, and Deficio are all former professionals is cool, and that's definitely helped them get into casting.
Yeah.
But it's fine. They don't have to get in that way.
Yeah. So I mean, there's just so many other variables, etc. Double Lift is your favorite LCS caster. Why did Golden Boy as a host give predictions for Worlds, especially when it doesn't even play Smite?
Because it's fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
Everyone has opinions about who's gonna win.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
also, didn't he have pretty good predictions?
Yeah, I mean, not for nothing. Don't forget that Golden Boy is a very good friend of Gandhi's, a good friend of mine. Like we speak in DMs all the time, and that's he doesn't follow Smite. He doesn't follow Smite as much as we do, obviously, but he's still involved. So, I'm so less concerned about that. That's gonna be our show today. So Tuesday clearly not working out. Monday with a big old asterisk. Hopefully we can do this every Monday. Shooting for 7, likely 8. Krett's got a real job. And on the Monday,
you were later than I was today.
That's actually very true because I got a real job. I was casting Monday Night Smite. Finally got some real jobs. Thank you so much for watching. Shouts to the new subs and the new tips, whatever. But shouts to everybody that contributes and all that
Subscribe
fun stuff.
if you like his hair.
Yeah, sure. Don't do that. Subscribe if you like his hair. Thanks for watching. You can catch us on YouTube as well. youtube.com/FDOTNY. And this is not the right screen.
It's over there.
That's it. Thanks for watching. Peace out. And much love to you.